Haven't seen you since the Vilgax incident. How've you been holding up? Grandpa, who is he? Ben asked curiously. This is Phil, Grandpa explained. He used to be a plumber too, like me. Only difference is, I'm retired now. Gwen glanced between her grandfather and Phil, her expression uncertain. They were clearly around the same age, yet the difference was startling. Phil looked vigorous and youthful, while Grandpa Max bore the marks of time. Was Phil just really good at taking care of himself? Awesome! Another plumber! Ben exclaimed, bounding forward with a grin. Nice to meet you, Uncle Phil. I'm Ben Tennyson. Phil shook his hand politely, but his eyes caught on something Ben's wrist. Cool watch, he remarked, narrowing his gaze. Looks kinda familiar. Well, that's because Ben began, but Grandpa quickly clamped a hand over his mouth. All right, Phil, Grandpa cut in, forcing a smile. You're here to deal with the alien causing all this trouble, right? Of course, Phil replied, his tone full of pride. When the local law enforcement can't handle something, I'm the one they call. He lifted his sleek laser rifle and aimed it at both Humongousaur and the four-armed creature. And today's my lucky day, 2 targets at once. He tightened his grip on the trigger. I wouldn't shoot if I were you, old man, Humongousaur growled, clenching his fists, ready for a counterattack. Don't threaten me, monster. Phil pulled the trigger, but in a blur of motion, Grandpa Max deflected the gun, sending the laser bolt flying harmlessly into the wall. Max! What the hell are you doing? Phil snapped, yanking his weapon back, eyes narrowing with suspicion. It's a misunderstanding, Phil, Grandpa said quickly, signaling subtly toward Humongousaur, telling him to get out while he still could. Misunderstanding? Phil scoffed. Every alien is an enemy of the plumbers, and you know it. No, Phil, Grandpa countered firmly. That dinosaur just saved us. He took down both the Havoc Beast and the Tetramand. If it weren't for him, we'd all be dead right now. Phil hesitated. Even so. He turned his head, only to find that Humongousaur had already vanished, leaving behind only the battered, unconscious Tetramand. Damn it! He got away. Let it go, Phil, Grandpa said calmly. That one wasn't an enemy, he was just doing the right thing. Besides, a plumber's job is to protect civilians from dangerous alien threats, not to hunt down every creature that lands on Earth. Phil sighed, turning his head away. You know, Max, this is all your fault. My fault? Yet. Ever since you took down Vilgax, no alien dares to cause trouble on Earth anymore. Now I'm running out of work. Grandpa chuckled dryly. I was just doing my job. Fine, fine, Phil said, shaking his head with mock annoyance. I'll take this Tetramand back and hand him over to the proper authorities. And the Havoc Beast too, Grandpa reminded him. Got it, Max. I'll take care of them. Strange thing, though, Grandpa mused. We haven't seen a Havoc Beast since we caught one in Denver. Not a single sighting since then. Phil shrugged. You know how aliens are. They don't follow logic. They show up when they want, wherever they want. There's no predicting them. Grandpa frowned, deep in thought. Still, what are the odds of a Tetramand and a Havoc Beast appearing in the same place, at the same time? All right, Max, we used to be comrades, closer than brothers. A sly glint flashed in Phil's eyes. Join me. Let's get back to what we did best, hunting down and punishing rogue alien creatures. Together, we'd be unstoppable. No, Grandpa Max said firmly. I'm retired now. All I want is to live quietly with my grandkids. Once a plumber, always a plumber. You sure you won't reconsider? Phil pressed, trying to win him over. Yeah, Grandpa. Let's team up with Phil. Ben's eyes lit up, his youthful enthusiasm blazing to life. The idea of becoming a hero plumber thrilled him to no end. "Ben's right," Phil added with a grin. "Come on, Max, you're still as sharp as ever. If you join me, you'll have all the wealth and glory you could want. A comfortable life for the rest of your years, doesn't that sound tempting?" At those words, whatever hesitation Max had vanished completely. His resolve returned, hard as stone. He took Ben and Gwen by the hands and started toward the door. "Phil, I told you I'm retired. Ben's just a kid, he doesn't know better. Don't hold it against him." He paused at the threshold. "We've got other matters to handle. You take care of these two aliens. Hand them over to the authorities and let them deal out the proper punishment." Without looking back, Max led the still struggling Ben out of the villa. He knew Phil too well. The man standing there now was no longer the same comrade he'd once trusted with his life. Greed had clouded his judgment. He'd lost sight of the ideals that had once defined a plumber. Lucian, standing near the doorway, had heard the entire conversation. He let out a quiet sigh. The boy who slew dragons had finally become one himself. Phil kept his back to the group, a glint of cold light flashing in his eyes. Yet his voice rang out with hearty laughter. "That's fine, Max. I believe one day you'll come around. When that time comes, I'll be waiting." When the rust bucket finally pulled away, Phil turned toward the wounded Tetramand and the snarling havoc beast. A faint, cruel smile curved his lips. Meanwhile, the rust bucket rumbled down the dark highway. They still hadn't found a place to stop for the night. "Grandpa, I don't get it," Ben muttered, pouting. "Why didn't we join Phil? And you wouldn't even let me talk about the Omnitrix. That's so unfair." "Ben," Grandpa said gently, shaking his head, "you don't have to tell everyone everything. But Phil was your partner. Can't we trust him?" Ben protested. "Doofus, Grandpa has his reasons," Gwen said, giving her cousin a light smack on the shoulder. "People change," Lucian said calmly as he adjusted the Omnitrix on his wrist, cycling through the alien forms. "Nothing stays the same forever." "You're right, Lucian." Grandpa nodded. "And as for the Omnitrix, it's better to keep it a secret. The fewer who know, the safer we'll be." Just then, the console screen at the front of the rust bucket flickered to life. Grandpa tapped to answer the incoming call. Phil's frantic voice burst through the speaker. "Max! I need backup." Two Vulpamancers showed up at the meat processing plant off Highway 42. "They're too strong, I can't take them alone." A thunderous roar echoed through the call, rattling the speaker. Lucian frowned slightly. Something about this felt wrong, a little too convenient. But his memory of the original events was hazy, he couldn't be sure. Before he could say anything, Grandpa Max gripped the wheel and spun it around. "Hang on," he said, voice steady. "We're heading to the meat processing plant." Chapter 126, Chapter 126, Vulpamancers. Midnight. The meat processing plant loomed under the pale moonlight. It wasn't large, just a single-story steel structure covering roughly 500 square meters. The corrugated walls gleamed with a cold, silvery sheen beneath the moon's glow. From somewhere deep inside, guttural roars echoed, wild, violent, and chilling to the bone. The group arrived in haste, stepping out of the rust bucket one by one. "Stay behind me and keep your eyes open," Grandpa Max said quietly, pushing open the heavy door. "No. I'll take point." Lucian shook his head. He hated being treated like someone who needed protection. "Grandpa, what's there to be afraid of?" Ben shrugged. "It's just two aliens. 4 arms can take care of them easy." "Yeah right, doofus. Try not to pee your pants later," Gwen muttered, rolling her eyes. "Lucian," Grandpa began seriously, "Vulpamancers are dangerous creatures. I know their behavior patterns, and..." Lucian raised a hand to stop him. Relax, Grandpa. I know what we're dealing with. With a reluctant sigh, Grandpa Max nodded. They arranged themselves in formation, Lucian leading, followed by Gwen, then Ben, with Grandpa taking up the rear to guard against a possible ambush. Gwen and Ben were strong, but their experience and instincts couldn't match Grandpa's. The place was pitch dark and deathly quiet. The abandoned plant gave off an unsettling aura, as if some lurking demon might spring from the shadows at any second to tear them apart. After creeping through the dim corridors, they finally spotted someone slumped at the corner. Phil. Under the flickering yellow light, blood streaked down his forehead. His expression was frantic as he clutched Grandpa Max's arm. Max, they're in the cold storage room up ahead. Kill them. Now, he shouted, pointing toward the metal door. You're hurt. We should get you to a hospital, Grandpa said, frowning. No. We have to deal with the Vulpamancers first. Phil barked hoarsely, his gaze darting suddenly to Lucian. Who's this? How'd he end up here? This is my grandson, Lucian, Grandpa replied smoothly. When you were at the villa earlier, he'd stepped away to the restroom. It was a lie, of course. He couldn't exactly admit that Lucian had been the Humongousaur. Phil nodded absently, uninterested in the explanation. We need to take those beasts down fast. If they escape the facility, it'll be chaos. His voice dripped with concern, but his eyes flicked again and again toward Ben, subtly studying his reactions. Lucian caught the glance and smirked inwardly. Old fox. He's already recognized the Omnitrix. Lucian didn't intend to stop Ben. Letting him transform would be the perfect way to expose Phil's true intentions. Relax, Uncle Phil. It's just two aliens, Ben said confidently, spreading his hands. Roar! 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 Suddenly, two enormous beasts burst from the cold storage, shaking the floor with their thunderous roars. Ben's eyes widened as he got a good look at them. They had no eyes, no noses, only gaping maws full of jagged teeth. Their bodies were covered in coarse, orange-yellow fur that stood up like steel spikes, each barb gleaming in the dim light. One of the creatures bore blood-red stripes along its back, while the other was solid orange. What shocked Ben most was how familiar they looked. They were almost identical to Wild Mutt, only much larger. Your friends? Gwen asked dryly, glancing at him. That makes things easier. Watch this. Ben pressed the Omnitrix, intending to talk things out Vulpamancer to Vulpamancer and stop the chaos peacefully. Grandpa Max's face paled. Ben, wait. Too late. Thud. A flash of eerie green light filled the plant. When it faded, Wild Mutt stood in Ben's place, crouched low and growling softly as he padded toward the two beasts. So that watch really is the Omnitrix, the legend's true. Phil's face lit up with excitement before he cleared his throat. Mark, I really hope you and Ben will join me and lend a hand. We'll talk about that later, Grandpa Max sighed and shook his head. Lucian's sharp, deep eyes stayed fixed on the scene ahead, though he was silently on guard against Phil. That old man's more dangerous than a Vulpamancer. Roar! Wild Mutt crouched before its two kindred, letting out a steady rhythm of growls as if sending a message. Before the two adult Vulpamancers, Wild Mutt looked tiny. After all, Ben was only 10, his form was at least half their size. Roar! The striped beast lifted its blade-like claw, a cold gleam flashing as it slashed straight for Wild Mutt's neck. Wild Mutt growled lowly and twisted aside just in time. Deep claw marks tore across the tiled floor beneath him, sharp and striking. What did Wild Mutt say? Don't tell me the talk went south. Gwen asked, puzzled. Vulpamancers can't be reasoned with. They don't care if they kill their own kind. Grandpa Max raised his pistol and aimed at the feral creature. Wild Mutt was now being chased all over the place by the two adult beasts. He looked like a kid caught sneaking online, running from both parents' classic mixed doubles. Roar! Dodging the plain-colored beast's leap, Wild Mutt jumped onto a hanging iron chain, swinging back and forth. The striped one was the fiercest. Its hind legs kicked off the floor, launching it into the air. Fangs bared, it lunged straight for Wild Mutt. Wild Mutt quickly let go of the chain and dropped onto a motionless conveyor belt below. Seeing Ben in danger, Grandpa Max fired a burst of laser shots from his twin pistols. But against full-grown Vulpamancers, the power was far too weak to stop them. Gwen raised her pale hand, ready to cast water magic. Suddenly, a warm, firm hand closed around hers. "Hey? Cuz!" Gwen gasped, her heart pounding wildly like a startled deer. But confusion followed. Why was her cousin stopping her? "Let me handle this," Lucian said softly, his voice calm and magnetic. Gwen's expression softened as she nodded blankly. Just when she thought Lucian was about to transform, he took a deep breath and shouted, "Wild Mutt, run! Over here!" At his call, Wild Mutt growled lowly as if grabbing onto a lifeline, then swung its claws furiously, breaking free from the two massive beasts. It bolted forward on all fours, racing toward Lucian without looking back. It was clearly terrified of its adult counterparts. Phil, injured on the side, stared in surprise. Could this man named Lucian really control those vicious beasts? As the thought crossed his mind, a faint smile flickered on Lucian's lips. He suddenly turned and sprinted straight toward Phil. "What?" Phil shouted in shock. "If you'd like to support my work and unlock advanced chapters, you can follow me on Patreon. Up to 50 chapters ahead for now. Patreon.com/pinksnake. Chapter 127, Chapter 127, Null Void Projector. Roar! Roar! The Wild Mutt moved with lightning speed, darting past Phil and charging straight toward Lucian. Upon sensing Phil's presence, Wild Mutt paused for a moment, wanting to rescue him. "Come on, don't you trust me?" Lucian waved his hand, refusing to let his plan be thrown off track. Roar! After a brief hesitation, Wild Mutt ran after him, escaping alongside Lucian. He trusted Lucian. "Phil, get out of the way!" Grandpa Max shouted from behind, trying to catch up to the two ferocious beasts. Phil stood frozen as the two savage creatures, claws and fangs bared, grew larger and larger in his eyes. Suddenly, he pulled a device from his pocket. It was entirely silver, shaped somewhat like a key, with a red button on top. Phil pressed it firmly. A strange audio signal burst from the device, creating invisible sound waves that spread in all directions. Roar! Both Vulpamancers and even Wild Mutt nearby clutched their heads in agony, rolling on the ground as if enduring the cruelest torture. Sonic pitch whistle. Grandpa Max rushed over, his brows deeply furrowed. This device emitted a special frequency lethal to Vulpamancers, whose hearing was extremely sensitive. But if Phil already had the sonic pitch whistle, why hadn't he handled the Vulpamancers sooner? Noticing Grandpa Max's suspicious gaze, Phil grinned. "Things got urgent just now. That's when I remembered I had the sonic pitch whistle." Grandpa Max nodded slightly, though his expression shifted. By the time they had dealt with the two Vulpamancers, it was around 3 in the morning. Everyone was utterly exhausted. After Phil's persistent persuasion, Grandpa Max finally agreed to bring Lucian and the others to Phil's place to rest, deciding they'd plan once daylight came. When they arrived, everyone froze in place. Luxurious red carpets, gleaming crystal chandeliers, expensive tiger-skin sofas, and jade-carved tea sets, pure extravagance. Phil, however, waved it off dismissively. "Max, this presidential suite is just a trifle. If you join me, you'll be world-famous tycoons soon enough." Grandpa Max shook his head, refusing to be swayed. Ben sat on the leather sofa, munching on an extravagant fruit platter. "Grandpa, you're too stubborn. Joining Uncle Phil would be awesome. We could fight bad guys and live happily ever after. What's not to love?" Don't assume everyone's as greedy as you, Gwen huffed, glaring at her cousin who'd been bought off with fruit. Exactly, Max. Ben's absolutely right. Phil pressed on, seizing the moment. Ben's powers, your combat experience, and my talents together, we'd be unstoppable. No alien could stand against us. Lucian's mouth twitched slightly. Talents, hey? That's quite the stretch. After a long pause, Grandpa Max rubbed his forehead. Just leave me alone for a bit. With that, he walked out the door, leaving only his solitary figure behind. Phil clenched his fist quietly, then turned with a bright smile. Ben, you two stay here and have fun. I'll go convince Max to join my team. Go ahead, Uncle Philosophy. Ben was still happily eating, fruit juice dripping down his chin. Gwen shook her head, opening her laptop to look over study materials. Watching Grandpa Max and Phil walk away, Lucian felt a chill in his chest. That sly old fox was probably about to reveal his true intentions. Not long ago at the meat processing plant, Lucian had deliberately lured the two Vulpimancers toward Phil all to make him slip up. With the sonic pitch whistle, Phil could have handled the Vulpimancers entirely on his own. So what was his real purpose in bringing everyone there? Presidential suite, back garden. Grandpa Max, his hair streaked with grey, sat at the edge of the flower bed. His eyes were calm as still water, yet his brow remained deeply furrowed. Memories surfaced of the days he had fought alongside Phil. The two had been inseparable, working in perfect sync. Together, they had defeated Vilgax and sent him into outer space. Then the scene in his mind shifted to the meat processing plant. Phil's look when he saw Ben's Omnitrix, and later, the sudden appearance of the sonic pitch whistle, it was all far too suspicious. A bad feeling crept into Grandpa Max's heart. He sighed softly. I hope it's not what I'm thinking. Suddenly, faint footsteps rustled nearby. Grandpa Max's eyes hardened. His hand instinctively went to his waist as he sprang upright, ready to draw his gun. Old friend, your vigilance hasn't dulled a bit. Phil greeted him with a sheepish grin, raising both hands. So it's you. Grandpa Max relaxed slightly and sat back down. Max, hear me out, Phil said casually, sitting beside him. I sincerely want you and Ben to join me. Together, we could fight crime, eliminate evil, and restore the pride of the plumbers. No need to say more, Grandpa Max said, his face darkening. Ben is still a kid. Don't drag him into this. And thank you for putting us up tonight. We'll be gone by morning. Max, are you sure you won't reconsider? Phil asked with a faint, mocking smile, his hand subtly reaching behind his back. Grandpa Max remained deep in thought, unaware of the movement, or perhaps, he simply didn't expect it. Click. Phil suddenly raised the null void projector, aiming it straight at Grandpa Max. What? Grandpa Max's eyes widened. Phil, do you even know what you're doing? You forced me into this, Max, Phil said with a cold smile. No wonder those aliens looked familiar. The Havoc Beast, the Vulpimancer, all creatures we once locked away in the null void. Grandpa Max clenched his fists tightly. You stole the null void projector, released the aliens, then recaptured them for profit. Phil, you've really let me down. At this moment, the man before him felt like a stranger driven by greed, without a shred of conscience left. Max, if I hadn't done this, I'd have been out of work long ago, Phil said with a sneer. Ever since you took down Vilgax, no alien dares cause trouble on Earth. I only did this to keep my job. Put down the null void projector. There's still a chance to fix this, Grandpa Max said gravely. Since you're so stubborn, I can't let you walk away, Phil said with feigned regret. Don't worry, Max. I'll tell Ben you left final words asking him to help me destroy alien monsters and make us both rich. He pulled the trigger. A golden beam of light shot out, heading straight for the stunned Grandpa Max. Bang! A white silhouette suddenly appeared from the side, slamming into Phil and sending him flying. The golden beam veered off course, streaking past Grandpa Max and vanishing into the night sky. Ghost Freak, its single purple eye gleaming, glared at Phil sprawled in the flower bed. Its voice rasped coldly, "Lucian was right. You've been lying to us all along. Ben, this isn't the way. We should be working together to fight those aliens." Phil stood up, his body covered in scattered petals. "I won't work with someone like you," Ghost Freak said, shaking its head, voice like ice. "That's a shame." The words had barely left his lips when Phil raised the null void projector again, firing another golden beam at the ground of the garden. Hum! A golden circle formed on the lawn, rippling with waves of energy. Screech! A grayish-white creature burst out from within the light. It had wings sprouting from its back, razor-sharp fangs, and a tail made of writhing tendrils. Massive and menacing, it looked like a cross between a bat and an octopus. Chapter 128, Chapter 128, The Green Giant. "It's a Null Guardian." Grandpa Max's eyes narrowed. Null Guardians usually lived within the Null Void, tasked with hunting down alien criminals. Anyone foolish enough to attempt escape would be relentlessly pursued by packs of these creatures. If the Null Void was a prison, then the Null Guardians were its guards, an indispensable force. Ha! This particular Null Guardian had been pursuing a fugitive when a golden light circle suddenly appeared ahead, teleporting it straight to this place. Scanning the unfamiliar surroundings, the Null Guardian growled lowly, its gaze immediately locking onto Ghost Freak. An ectoneurite. The other life forms' weak earthlings weren't even worth its attention. With a flap of its wings, the Null Guardian's octopus-like tendrils twisted and waved as it glided through the air, diving straight toward the ghostly figure. "Oh, this isn't fun at all." Ghost Freak's body faded into nothingness, vanishing into the air. Blending perfectly with the darkness, Ghost Freak drifted silently toward Phil in the flower bed, ready to snatch the Null Void projector from him. Just then, another golden light circle flared beside them. Ha! A second Null Guardian emerged, even larger and more ferocious than the first. The moment it appeared, the raging beast roared and charged at Phil. Phil quickly raised his Null Void projector, firing a golden beam that sucked the frenzied Null Guardian back into the Null Void. Then, without hesitation, he pulled the trigger again, this time releasing it toward Grandpa Max. As expected, the savage Null Guardian burst out once more. The instant it spotted a living target, its wings spread wide, and with a furious roar, it lunged to tear everything in its path to pieces. Now two Null Guardians prowled the courtyard, claws slashing as they attacked Grandpa Max. Grandpa Max fired bursts of blue laser rounds from his twin pistols, rolling and dodging between shots as he fought desperately to hold them off. Nearby, Gwen chanted her spell, summoning streams of blue water dragons that repeatedly struck the attacking beasts. But against the Null Guardian's tough, armored hides, her water dragon soul spells barely caused any harm, only pushing them back for brief moments. Drained from the effort, Gwen was already nearing her limit. Without hesitation, Ghost Freak turned and flew toward the Null Guardian at the rear, engaging it head-on. Phil sneered, retreating to the corner of the courtyard. He watched the ongoing battle with a mocking smile, as though enjoying the show. At this point, he had given up on Ben ever siding with him. But now that they'd discovered his secret, he couldn't let them walk away alive. Suddenly, footsteps echoed from the side. Phil whipped his head around. Seeing who it was, he exhaled in relief. "Oh, it's Grandpa Max's grandson. You nearly gave me a heart attack." He wiped the sweat from his brow and looked at the young man standing before him. Lucian stood there in a white t-shirt and loose light blue jeans, his hands tucked casually into his pockets. His deep eyes shimmered faintly as he stared coldly at Phil. "Ha, what's that look on your face?" Phil sneered, his eyes full of contempt. "Once the Null Guardian finishes off Max and the others, you'll be next." To Phil, the biggest threat was Ben Tennyson because he possessed the Omnitrix. As for the young man standing before him, Phil didn't even see him as a threat, just an insignificant ant. Is that so? Lucian smiled, raising his Omnitrix calibration model and pressing it down. Beep beep. The sleek device flared to life, projecting a vibrant green hologram filled with a sense of mystery and high-tech brilliance. What? Phil's eyes widened, his mouth hanging open. An Omnitrix? Another Omnitrix? How is that possible? Though it looked different from Ben's original version, Phil immediately recognized the unmistakable design, and it was clearly a more advanced model. Heat Blast, Buzzshock, Ditto, Humongousaur, Snarrow. XLR8. You'll do. Lucian switched the dial to XLR8's icon and slammed it down. Thud. A flash of emerald light burst forth, and a flaming figure emerged where Lucian had stood. Its skin glowed crimson, radiating the heat of molten rock. Cracks lined its body, pulsing with fiery light, and a raging blaze danced atop its head. Heat Blast. Lucian looked at his own hands, slightly taken aback. Whatever. It doesn't matter who I turn into. Dealing with Phil wouldn't be hard, no matter the form. Heat Blast leapt into the air, fire erupting beneath his feet as he soared forward on a trail of blazing flame, closing in fast. Phil's expression twisted in alarm. He quickly raised the null void projector, firing a golden beam in an attempt to absorb Heat Blast. But Heat Blast had already anticipated the move. With a swift sidestep, he dodged the attack and surged forward. Just as he was about to reach Phil, a powerful gust slammed toward him from behind, the force pressing down on his head like a hammer. Heat Blast's instincts flared. He twisted midair and darted aside. Boom! A massive iron hammer crashed down where he'd been standing, unleashing a thunderous shockwave that shattered the ground and sent dust billowing into the air. Heat Blast turned, fists tightening. Not far from Phil, a dazzling golden ring shimmered in the air. From beyond it loomed a monstrous figure 5 meters tall, skin dark green and thick with bulging muscles. Its features were swollen and grotesque, its head huge and ears flared wide, like a pig demon that had taken on human form. It clutched a colossal hammer, blood-red eyes locking fiercely onto Heat Blast. Heat Blast dropped into a fighting stance, ready to engage at any moment. Although he had dodged Phil's earlier blast, the stray beam had created that golden ring, and from it, this creature had emerged. Phil froze for a moment, then smirked. Seems fate favors me after all. Even as a fire alien, you're no match for me. Roar! The green brute raised its hammer, smashing the ground beneath its feet as it charged forward like a rampaging tank. Ding! Alien hacker mission triggered. Defeat the green giant. Mission success reward, random enhancement effect. The system notifications echoed through Heat Blast's mind. Then I'll deal with you first. He thrust his palms downward, unleashing a torrent of scorching flame that condensed beneath him into a fiery cloud. Whoosh! The green giant swung its massive hammer with terrifying force, aiming to crush Heat Blast into the ground. But in the next instant, Heat Blast blasted upward, flames propelling him out of reach of the devastating strike. He aimed his palm down and launched several blazing fireballs at the creature below. Roar! The green giant bellowed like a beast, its muscles bulging as it swung its hammer in wild arcs, smashing apart each incoming fireball with explosive bursts of flame lighting up the sky. Strong, huh? Guess I'll have to get serious. Heat Blast gathered roaring flames in his hands, spiraling them around his arms before unleashing twin waves of burning energy. The two fiery streams intertwined midair, merging into a colossal fire dragon that bared its fangs and roared as it hurled itself straight at the target. The green giant raised its hammer, let out a furious roar, and met the dragon head-on. Chapter 129, Chapter 129, No Turning Back. Thud! The green giant lifted his massive hammer and brought it down with full force on the roaring fire dragon. The explosion of power sent a violent heatwave rippling outward, bending the delicate flower stems around them. Hovering in midair, Heat Blast watched as the rising steam below swallowed the giant's silhouette from sight. He turned his gaze toward Phil, ready to charge forward and seize the null void projector. Suddenly, a sharp whistling sound cut through the air beside him. Heat Blast flashed to the side, leaping from his fiery cloud to dodge the incoming hammer, landing steadily on the scorched lawn. Across the garden, the green giant stood beneath a tree. His skin was blackened by the fire dragon's flames, and his breaths came heavy and ragged. Clearly, the attack had left him badly injured. Both of his hands were empty now. He had hurled his enormous hammer moments ago in a failed ambush that Heat Blast easily avoided. Seeing the creature weakened, Heat Blast decided it was time to finish things. Clenching his fists, he gathered searing flames around them, then pushed off with both legs, becoming a streak of crimson light that closed the distance in an instant. A flicker of fear flashed in the giant's emerald eyes. Thud! 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 A flurry of fiery punches tore through the air, leaving trails of blazing light. Like a storm of fire, they rained down mercilessly upon the giant's body. Boom! After hundreds of rapid strikes, Heat Blast gathered his full power into one final blow. His fist blazed with dazzling flames before driving into the giant's abdomen like a thunderbolt. For a moment, everything fell still. The giant's eyes widened and his body froze in place, as if someone had hit pause on him. 3 seconds later, he toppled backward with a thunderous crash. The ground quaked beneath his weight, sending waves of dust rolling through the courtyard. His massive arm still twitched weakly. He wasn't dead, just completely immobilized. Green Giant defeated. Heat Blast enhanced, fire power plus 10%. Heat Blast pulled back his fist and turned toward Phil in the corner. Meanwhile, Ghost Freak and Grandpa Max had already dealt with the two Null Guardians, knocking them out cold. Their hulking bodies lay sprawled across the shattered courtyard like drunken beasts. The night wind howled as Heat Blast strode forward, each step leaving scorched, glowing footprints on the ground. His presence radiated quiet power, a natural authority that needed no words. Phil, I'll say this one last time, hand over the null void projector. Grandpa Max shouted, clutching his wounded arm as he rushed forward. Ghost Freak floated beside him, his pale form glowing faintly in the dark. His single eye glared coldly at the panicked philosophy. You scum, Phil! How dare you deceive the great hero? That's because that doofus was too easy to fool. Gwen muttered, pouting as she remembered how Ben had been bribed with a fruit platter. If Lucian hadn't exposed Phil's true nature when he and Grandpa were away, they might still be in the dark and Grandpa could have ended up trapped inside the null void himself. The group stood together, facing Phil in the corner of the courtyard. Against two powerful aliens, a retired plumber, and a water mage, Phil's heart sank completely. He let out a bitter laugh, glancing at his former comrade. Max, you know there's no going back for me. After what I've done, the plumbers will never forgive me. Grandpa Max's heart tightened. He took a deep breath, steadying his voice. If you're willing to stop now, there's still a chance. For the sake of our past, I'll plead your case with the plumbers. Maybe I can help lessen your punishment. Phil shook his head. It's too late for that, Max. The moment he finished speaking, he raised the null void projector and fired. A beam of golden energy erupted from the barrel, surging straight toward them. Heat Blast reacted instantly, grabbing Gwen and Grandpa Max and transforming into a swirling tornado of flames, vanishing from sight. Ghost Freak shifted into his intangible form, letting the golden wave pass harmlessly through his body. Buzz! The beam soared upward until it burst against the night sky, forming a massive golden ring. It glowed like a wound torn open in the heavens, a sight both dazzling and terrifying. Roar! A massive black serpent burst out from the golden ring. No, it was a dragon. Twin horns jutted from its head, its eyes glowing blood red. Its body was covered in azure scales that shimmered with a ghostly green gleam under the moonlight. Nearly 20 meters long, it coiled and twisted through the air, each breath releasing crackling threads of blue lightning. It's a thunder dragon. Grandpa Max's face went pale. Ha 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 ha. Phil threw back his head in manic laughter. Thunder dragon, perfect. Destroy this cursed world. Roar. The thunder dragon let out a thunderous roar that shook the night, diving straight down. Lightning danced wildly across its body as it plummeted toward Phil. Gulp. It opened its enormous jaws and swallowed the crazed Phil whole. Phil. Grandpa Max shouted, his voice filled with grief and turmoil. Once, they had fought side by side through life and death, and now his comrade was gone. Or perhaps, the real Phil had already died long ago, consumed by greed. The appearance of the thunder dragon sent nearby residents screaming as they fled into the streets, terrified of being caught in the chaos. Heat Blast stood firm before the mighty creature, his blazing form radiating unshaken resolve. Lucian. The horns on its head emit powerful electrical currents, don't let them hit you. Grandpa Max shouted, shielding Gwen behind him. He didn't even bother drawing his gun. Against something like this, it would be useless. Got it. Heat Blast nodded. He stepped onto his blazing trail of fire and strode forward through the air to face the dragon. Raising one hand, he formed a crimson fireball and hurled it straight ahead. Boom! The blazing orb, trailing waves of scorching heat, slammed into the thunder dragon's body, but it only sparked a faint burst of flame before disappearing. The eerie green scales were barely scorched, leaving the creature unharmed. So that's it? Even with my flames boosted by 10%? The dragon's scales are immune to both fire and water. Switch to another alien hero. Grandpa Max shouted. No need. Leave this to the old ghost freak. In an instant, Ghost Freak appeared out of thin air. He tore open the tendrils across his chest, black and white limbs whipping violently as they lashed at the thunder dragon's side, sinking in like biting fangs. Roar! The thunder dragon bellowed in pain and lashed its tail furiously, striking Ghost Freak and sending him flying. Thud! Ghost Freak crashed into the ground like a kite with its string cut, his white form slamming into the lawn before he could rise again. Roar! Electric light surged between the dragon's twin horns as arcs of blue energy gathered, ready to annihilate everything before it. Heat Blast pressed his hand against the Omnitrix on his chest, triggering another transformation. If you'd like to support my work and unlock advanced chapters, you can follow me on Patreon. Up to 50 chapters ahead for now. Patreon.com/pinksnake. Chapter 130, Chapter 130, Nemesis. Buzz shock. Black and green streaks intertwined as its body crackled with electricity, two egg-sized eyes gleaming brilliantly. Crack! A thick bolt of blue-green lightning erupted from the dragon's horn, ripping through the air and striking down with devastating speed. The overwhelming surge of power rolled across the sky like a tidal wave, drenching the world in an eerie azure light as if divine judgment itself had fallen. Ding! Alien hacker mission triggered. Defeat the mighty thunder dragon and become the dragon-slaying Buzzshock. Mission success reward, unlock a random alien hero. Ha 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 ha. Buzzshock cackled wildly, transforming into a streak of blinding light that shot straight into the oncoming lightning. Boom! The violent collision burst into a storm of roaring blue lightning, sending waves of heat rippling through the air. Withered flowers were swept up and scattered, swirling across the courtyard like a sea of flickering color. Buzzshock stretched out its arms, standing amidst the raging bolts. Every inch of its body absorbed the surging energy, its entire being alight with pure power. Its strength climbed rapidly, its energy levels skyrocketing like a rocket breaking through the atmosphere. As a Nosdenian, electricity was its lifeblood, the very essence of its existence, just as a fish cannot live without water. The thunder dragon glared with bloodshot eyes the size of copper bells and let out a thunderous roar, channeling even more power into its attack. It refused to believe it couldn't kill this tiny, insolent bug. But the immense energy coursing through Buzzshock's small body was quickly becoming too much to contain. So it chose to divide. Amid flashes of blinding lightning, Buzzshock split in 2, then 4, then 8, 16, 32. Finally, 64 Buzzshock clones filled the air, each one glowing with volatile electric light. Roar! The Thunder Dragon finally realized something was wrong. Dozens of tiny Buzzshocks hovered around it, their bodies flickering like living bulbs, electric arcs dancing across their forms, each one fully charged and bursting with energy beyond imagination. Cool Ghost Freak rasped, his eerie voice trembling with awe. Back in Sparksville, a single Buzzshock had been terrifying enough. But this was on a whole other level. Roar! The Thunder Dragon roared and shot upward, its massive body twisting violently as it tried to escape. It knew if the fight continued, it would be torn apart by these little monsters. In response, dozens of Buzzshocks screeched in unison, transforming into streaks of green lightning that clung to the dragon's scales like living chains, impossible to shake off. The Thunder Dragon panicked, thrashing wildly as powerful gusts whipped through the air. It dared not unleash more lightning, terrified the Buzzshocks would only absorb it all again. At that moment, the lead Buzzshock darted above the dragon's head. If this big lizard won't release energy, I'll just take it myself. With a mischievous grin, Buzzshock reached out its small black hands, grabbed hold of both dragon horns, and activated its energy absorption mode. Roar! The Thunder Dragon roared in terror, thrashing its head violently in a desperate attempt to throw Buzzshock off. It could feel its energy draining rapidly, siphoned through its own horns and absorbed straight into the small alien's body. Ha ha ha! Buzzshock laughed wildly, standing proudly between the dragon's horns, riding the battered Thunder Dragon through the silver moonlight like a legendary dragon knight. The other Buzzshocks clung to the dragon's body, leeching the electricity from its scales while releasing controlled surges of blue lightning. The currents paralyzed the dragon's movements, keeping it bound and unable to break free. "Cuz, you're amazing!" Gwen stared up at the glowing dragon, her eyes full of awe. "Guess I don't need to lift a finger," Ghost Freak shrugged, floating lazily beside her. Grandpa Max finally exhaled, relief washing over him as he realized the Thunder Dragon was no match for Buzzshock. In terms of raw power, the creature was terrifying on par with Vilgax in his prime. But it lost because of one fatal flaw: it could only release electricity, not absorb it. The Thunder Dragon's electricity wasn't drawn from the environment but generated within its own body. Its physiology worked like that of an electric eel, capable of storing and discharging energy, but once depleted, it could only recover slowly, like regaining stamina over time. Buzzshock, being a Nosdenian, was completely different. It could both discharge and absorb energy, and even replenish it through rest. The Thunder Dragon's most devastating attack, its lightning, was nothing but food to Buzzshock, completely ineffective. Rah! With a pitiful cry, the Thunder Dragon's massive body convulsed. The crimson glow faded from its eyes as it plummeted from the sky. Boom! The impact flattened Phil's luxurious presidential suite, reducing it to a pile of rubble. All 64 Buzzshocks merged back into one, standing atop the dragon's head. Successfully defeated. The Thunder Dragon title earned, Dragon Slaying Buzzshock. Reward, Random Alien Hero Chest. "Ben, get over here," Buzzshock called, his high-pitched voice carrying across the courtyard. "What is it?" Ghost Freak drifted over, his form flickering faintly. Buzzshock placed one hand on his hip and pointed toward the dragon's belly. "You can phase through things. Get inside and retrieve the null void projector. And while you're at it, check if Phil's still alive." "Yes, cuz," Ghost Freak replied with a cheeky grin, flashing an OK sign. The sight made Buzzshock stiffen for a moment. It reminded him of the Ghost Freak that once escaped from his own Omnitrix. Moments later, Ghost Freak emerged from the Thunder Dragon's mouth, holding the null void projector. Grandpa Max stepped forward. "Phil, what about him? Is he still alive?" Ghost Freak shook his head slowly and sighed. The answer was obvious. Buzzshock lowered his head, unsurprised. Given the Thunder Dragon's digestion or just the suffocation alone, Phil's fate was sealed. Grandpa Max opened his mouth, then fell silent, finally letting out a long sigh as his gaze dropped to the ground. Grandpa. I'm sorry, Gwen said softly, taking his arm. Even if Phil had fallen into greed and madness, the bond of comradeship they once shared was real, and that made the loss hit harder. Max didn't know what Phil had gone through to end up this way. He didn't know now, and perhaps he never would. A faint glow spread across the distant horizon. Dawn had come. Grandpa Max lifted his head, a quiet resolve in his eyes. He activated the Null Void projector, recalling the defeated Null Guardians and the Green Giant back into containment. Finally, he looked at the battered Thunder Dragon. Lucian, give it a little charge. If it returns like this, it'll be torn apart by its old enemies. Buzzshock nodded, releasing thin streams of blue electricity into the dragon's body. Grandpa was right, the Thunder Dragon was far too weak. It wouldn't last 30 seconds back in the Null Void. They weren't doing it out of pity but to preserve balance. The Thunder Dragon, fierce as it was, helped maintain equilibrium among the creatures inside, just like predators and prey in nature. Wolves eat sheep, sheep eat grass. Without wolves, the sheep would overgraze the fields, then the grass would die, the sheep would starve, and the wolves would perish in turn. That was the delicate order of things. Thud. A golden portal opened. Guided by Buzzshock, the Thunder Dragon let out a low, rumbling growl before slowly gliding inside, returning to its domain. At the last moment, it turned its massive head, casting one final glance at Buzzshock. Then, with a thunderous roar, it vanished into the swirling light of the Null Void. By morning, the courtyard was calm again. Grandpa Max finished giving his statement to the police and reported the incident to the plumbers. Then, with the team gathered once more, he led them back on the road. If you'd like to support my work and unlock advanced chapters, you can follow me on Patreon. Up to 50 chapters ahead for now. Patreon.com/pinksnake. Chapter 131, Chapter 131, The Meteorite. 2 days later, Yellowstone National Park. At noon, the sunlight gleamed brilliantly, shimmering across the rippling lake like a golden mirror. Tall trees surrounded the area, their leaves rustling with life, birds chirping amid the scent of blooming flowers, a picture of vitality. The rust bucket slowed to a stop in this peaceful spot. Grandpa Max stepped out, taking a deep breath of the crisp air. Now this looks like the perfect place for a vacation. I bet there's plenty of wild delicacies around here. No way, Grandpa. I'm not eating any mealworms or snails, Ben waved his hands. I agree, Gwen said, raising her hand, a rare moment of unity between them. Lucian yawned as he climbed out of the rust bucket. His gaze swept across the tranquil scenery. It really did feel like the perfect spot for a trip or some camping, though it was strangely empty and quiet. After a bit of bustling about, they spread a picnic blanket across the grass, piling it high with snacks and fruits that instantly made Ben's mouth water. As for Grandpa, he frowned in distaste at first but soon noticed something under a nearby fallen tree, a pile of wriggling mealworms. His gloomy face lit up with delight, as if he'd struck gold. He quickly grabbed a bowl and began scooping up the squirming treasure with surprising speed. Lucian, Ben, and Gwen sat together on the blanket, enjoying the snacks under the warm sun. They chatted idly, mostly about funny moments from their journey, though their conversation eventually drifted off. Gwen brought up Lucian's mother once, but after a few words, the topic quietly faded away. Lucian's soul had only crossed into this body. The parents of the original Lucian had little to do with him. Aside from a few clues Grandpa had mentioned, there were no leads to follow. Finding them was nearly impossible, let alone bringing them back. 9 years ago, an accident at sea had caused the original Lucian and his parents to vanish without a trace. Years later, the body was found in a forest, its soul replaced by Lucian's, and he had gained the level 20 alien technology, the Omnitrix. Sometimes Lucian couldn't help but wonder, where had the other Lucian's soul gone? Forget it. That could wait for another time. He shook his head. The priority now was to grow stronger. No one knew when the next boss-level threat might appear. And there was still Kevin and Ghost Freak, both troublesome opponents. Lucian focused his mind. In his thoughts, the alien hero chest appeared glowing faintly as it floated in the air. After defeating the Thunder Dragon, he hadn't had time to open it before escaping with Ben and the others. He'd nearly forgotten about it until now. Open the chest, Lucian whispered in his mind, silently praying. Atomix. Atomix. Or way big would be great. Echo wouldn't be bad either. Brainstorm could work too. Alien X would be perfect. His first transformation wouldn't require negotiating with its two personalities, and he could make a wish directly. But that chance only came once. Ding! Alien hero chest successfully opened. Congratulations! You've unlocked a new alien hero, Blitzwolfer. Lucian's heart skipped a beat. So it was him. The werewolf alien. He hadn't expected it to show up this soon. With exceptional close combat skills, keen senses, and the ability to emit sonic waves, it's pretty good for tracking enemies too, Lucian reassured himself silently. Kids! Grandpa Max returned triumphant, holding a bowl of live rice weevils. Look what Grandpa brought you! Delicious and fun live white striped rice weevils. Yuck! Gwen's scalp prickled with dread. This was pure nightmare material. Oh no, Grandpa, not again! Ben hurriedly grabbed a jar of chocolate sticks and retreated to the side. Sigh, you kids just don't know what's good, Grandpa muttered, picking up a few weevils and popping them straight into his mouth. Pop! A burst of juice spurted out, splattering white insect juice all over Gwen's pretty face. Oh, I'm ruined! Gwen looked utterly dejected. Ha ha ha, dweeb! You look so funny like this! Ben gloated, reveling in the chaos. Lucian pulled out 2 tissues and handed them to the sullen Gwen. Thanks, cuz. Gwen instantly beamed, like a blossoming flower. Whoosh! Suddenly, a massive fireball appeared overhead, carrying terrifying kinetic energy as it hurtled straight toward them. No! Grandpa Max gasped in horror. A meteorite this huge would surely be fatal upon impact. Ben and Gwen froze in place, completely petrified. Lucian flicked open the Omnitrix and slammed it down. Thud! A flash of eerie green light appeared, and XLR8 materialized on the spot. Go! XLR8 grabbed Ben and Gwen, transforming into a blue blur as he darted swiftly toward the distance, placing them in a safe spot. Without pausing, he raced back at full speed, snatched Grandpa Max, and charged toward the original location. Boom! The massive crimson meteor slammed into the ground, erupting with a thunderous explosion that shook the entire park, cracking the earth into spider-web-like fissures. Only after confirming the meteor wouldn't detonate did XLR8 lead the others back to the impact site. What on earth is this thing? It doesn't look like a meteorite, Grandpa Max mused, standing before the object. The group stood in the deep crater, scrutinizing the colossal, sky-obscuring rock before them. At first glance, it resembled a giant conch shell, its surface encased in scorched soil and emitting wisps of thick smoke, utterly motionless. Just as Lucian stepped forward to probe the meteorite's nature, a black, razor-sharp claw suddenly shot out from its side. Thud! 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 Before anyone could react, several more black claws erupted from both sides of the meteorite, embedding themselves into the scorched earth below. Chapter 132, Chapter 132, Great One. Crack! Cracks began to spread across the meteorite's surface, forming a dense spider-web pattern that rapidly expanded outward. Hiss! The meteorite let out a hoarse screech as its body trembled violently. The layer of pitch black, Charred soil on its surface rustled loose and crumbled away, revealing the shell beneath. Thick smoke and dust billowed into the air, the noise and movement immense. Only after the haze began to settle did everyone finally see the meteorite's true form. It was a colossal alien tick. Its pink exoskeleton was etched with complex, ancient patterns. From its mouth extended blood-red tentacles that writhed and twisted madly. Along its massive sides, tough, jet-black legs gleamed with a metallic sheen as they drove deep into the soft earth, anchoring it like the roots of a great tree, firm and unyielding. As if that weren't enough, the creature opened its mouth and let out a guttural roar. The crimson tentacles burrowed into the ground, greedily sucking at something unseen. What the hell is this thing? Grandpa Max frowned, baffled. Despite all his years of experience, he'd never seen anything like it. It was as if the monster had appeared out of nowhere. Ugh, don't tell me it's more trouble, Gwen groaned, clearly annoyed. Their park trip was about to be ruined again. It felt like every outing turned into a mess, either monsters or villains, never peace. Relax, Gwen. With this hero around, no alien freak can cause any trouble. Ben pounded his chest confidently. Lucian stepped forward, studying the creature's massive shell. The sight stirred a faint memory. If he remembered correctly, this thing absorbed Earth's energy and devoured it, eventually leading to planetary destruction. It was hard on the outside but soft within, its shell nearly impenetrable, yet its organs inside were fragile. In the original story, Ben had destroyed it using cannon bolt. It seems to be absorbing Earth's energy, Lucian said, feigning a thoughtful tone. We can't just sit back and do nothing. This thing looks like a parasite to me. Let's take it down. Hell yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Ben shouted, already itching for a fight. He slammed his hand onto the Omnitrix and began cycling through his hero options. Ben, let me. Before Lucian could finish, a sharp whooshing sound echoed from above. Everyone looked up, tension creeping through them. A circular spaceship hovered high overhead, sleek and metallic, bathed in a silvery glow. The hatch opened slowly, and 3 figures floated out. At the front was a tall, slender alien with blue frog-like eyes. Dressed in white, his drooping eyelids gave him a perpetually sleepy, lazy look. To his left stood a short, burly warrior with 4 yellow eyes and a large purple double-bladed axe gripped in his hands, his expression fierce and hostile. On the right was a thin, small alien with 6 arms and yellow skin. His expression was twisted and sinister, giving off an eerie vibe. All 3 had a circular purple device embedded in their foreheads, some sort of weapon, and each stood atop a hovering platform. Suspended high above, they looked down on everyone below with unmistakable arrogance. The leader, Frog Eyes, spoke first, floating before the massive insect. He spread his arms wide, expression reverent, and proclaimed loudly. Rejoice! It has arrived. This is its great glory, reserved solely for it. Who are you? Grandpa Max demanded coldly. We are faithful servants, followers of the Great One, who has descended here with us, Frog Eyes replied, his voice ethereal and slow. I heard this planet has billions of humans, the purple axe alien said, baring his jagged teeth. Too bad they'll all be extinct soon. Hey, weirdos! You here to fight? This hero's ready for you. Ben snarled, clearly ready for a brawl. No, we cherish peace, Frog Eyes answered calmly, almost with scholarly poise. Yeah, right. That's what every alien says before stabbing us in the back, Gwen shot back, her tone full of disbelief. This filthy planet deserves destruction, the purple axe alien sneered, twisting his face into an ugly grin. SHHH. The 6-armed yellow alien flew forward, pressing itself against the insect's shell as if listening intently. Silence, all of you. The Great One is speaking to me. I don't hear anything, Gwen muttered, baffled. The yellow 6-armed alien looked completely deranged, like some self-proclaimed prophet pretending to commune with the divine. Only I can understand its voice. The six-armed alien spread his arms wide, clinging tightly to the insect's shell. His eyes darted rapidly as if he were truly hearing something. What's it saying? Ben asked curiously. The Great One says that tonight, under the full moon, this planet will be purified, the yellow alien declared with pious conviction. Purified? What does that mean? Grandpa Max's face darkened, a sense of dread creeping in. Frog Eyes glided forward on his hoverboard until he hovered before them. The purple orb on his forehead flared to life, projecting a holographic image into the air. It was a planet, with a gigantic insect crawling across its surface identical to the one before them. Frog Eyes pressed his palms together and spoke with fervent devotion. We follow the Great One from planet to planet, from system to system, for it once revealed a divine miracle on our world. As the projection played, the insect's legs burrowed deep into the ground, spreading like the roots of a massive tree. In moments, they reached the planet's core until finally, with a deafening boom, the planet was torn apart, disintegrating into a cloud of ash. Behold its magnificent miracle! Its tentacles stretch and retract at will, piercing the heart of every world, corroding it from within, and consuming it entirely. Frog Eyes continued fervently. So our planet will end up like that too, destroyed by this Great One? Gwen asked, her tone thoughtful but uneasy. Indeed. Give thanks for the Great One's purification. Frog Eyes lifted both hands high and proclaimed loudly. Het, for humans, that's what you'd call the end of the world, the purple axe alien jeered, flashing a mouthful of uneven yellow teeth before shouting, Celebrate! 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 The three chanted in unison, their mocking voices making Ben's blood boil. Celebrate my ass! Ben growled, slamming his hand down on the Omnitrix. Thud! A flash of green light burst out, and Stinkfly emerged. Heroes here! Stinkfly spread his wings, whipping up a fierce gust of wind as he charged straight at the trio. Filthy creatures, do not disrupt the Great One's miracle! Frog Eyes shouted as a beam of purple energy shot from the orb on his forehead. The purple axe alien's eyes gleamed with malice. He swung his massive energy axe, unleashing waves of purple energy that slashed through the air toward Stinkfly. In an instant, Stinkfly and the trio were locked in a furious aerial battle, attacks colliding in bursts of light and wind. Meanwhile, Lucian stood near the Great One, feeling the soil beneath his feet darken and rot, its texture soft and slick, like melting, spoiled chocolate. He turned toward the distant forest and saw it decaying at an alarming speed. Trees withered and collapsed, the ground shriveling as all energy was drained away, leaving nothing but foul, black sludge. The terrifying phenomenon spread rapidly, sweeping outward in all directions. If this continued, the entire Earth would be drained dry, then explode, vanishing from the universe entirely. Ding triggered alien hacker mission. Eliminate the evil Great One and save Earth from destruction. Successfully completing this mission will unlock a random powerful hero. A series of mechanical tones echoed in Lucian's mind. A powerful hero? Which alien would it be this time? Way Big? Or maybe Alien X, Clockwork? Guess for yourself. This system, seriously, what's the point of you? Forget it. Let's deal with this so-called Great One first, Lucian muttered decisively. Grandpa, I'll take down the big bug. You and Gwen, find somewhere safe to hide. With that, Lucian transformed into Cannon Bolt, curling tightly into a spinning sphere and launching himself straight toward the giant insect's gaping maw. If you'd like to support my work and unlock advanced chapters, you can follow me on Patreon. Up to 50 chapters ahead for now. Patreon.com/pinksnake. Chapter 133, Chapter 133, Tygone. Gurgle. Cannonbolt dove into the Great One's mouth, tumbling through a slick, pitch-black tunnel before emerging deep inside its body. The spinning sphere uncurled, returning to its original form. Standing on a pulsing, muddy mass of flesh, Cannonbolt didn't rush to attack. Instead, he scanned his surroundings carefully. Clusters of multicolored organs hung above him, entwined with thick veins that carried streams of crimson fluid, feeding energy to every part of the creature. Directly ahead, at the base of the Great One's body, bursts of white light erupted from both sides. It looked like energy drawn from the outside world, gathering into a glowing pool that nourished the beast from within. "This thing's enormous," Cannonbolt muttered, gazing up at the sprawling network of organs overhead. He suddenly felt small and insignificant. Well, it made sense. Any alien bug big enough to consume an entire planet wouldn't exactly have a small stomach or body. Cannonbolt stretched out his stubby claw and jabbed at a nearby vein to test its toughness. Clang! Sparks flew as his sharp claw scraped against the thick vein, leaving only a shallow mark. What? Cannonbolt froze. What the hell? Wasn't the inside supposed to be soft and squishy? Looks like this Great One isn't exactly the same as the one in the original story. No big deal. Claws aren't my thing anyway. My specialty's destruction. Cannonbolt tucked himself into a yellow ball once more, spinning faster and faster until fierce winds spiraled around him. Then, with explosive momentum, he launched himself upward at the Great One's organs. Whoosh! The roaring yellow sphere slammed upward like a cannon round, packed with devastating kinetic force. "Do not harm the Great One!" A brown figure suddenly shot out of the shadows. With a massive palm like a fan, he smacked Cannonbolt midair, swatting him down hard into the fleshy ground below. Sizzle! Smoke rose from Cannonbolt's yellow shell as he reverted to his round, plump form, clutching his aching head. He grimaced, turning sharply toward the attacker. But what he saw made his eyes widen in shock, his heart skipping a beat. Beside the glowing white energy pool stood a Homungusaur. His eyes burned red, muscles tensed and bulging, exuding killing intent as he glared straight at Cannonbolt. "Homungusaur!" Cannonbolt blurted out. "Did one of my aliens get out on its own?" "No, that couldn't be it. This one was smaller, less bulky, and his face was marked with burn scars." After a quick assessment, Cannonbolt realized what he was dealing with. It wasn't his Homungusaur, but a member of the same species. A Vaxasaurian. "Vaxasaurian," Cannonbolt said coldly, ready to fight. "What are you doing here? You're not from this planet." "Call me Tygone," the Homungusaur roared, his voice hoarse and rough. "I abandoned my home long ago. To serve the great and almighty Great One, I will give everything, even my life." Cannonbolt sighed and shook his head. Looked like this fight couldn't be avoided. This so-called Great One had brainwashing power worthy of a cult leader. The alien trio from before was one thing, but now even a Vaxasaurian had been indoctrinated. Still, one question lingered in his mind. How could this Homungusaur understand the big stink bug's words? Ah, there's also that six-handed interpreter outside, basically the second in command of this intergalactic cult. "So you've been hiding inside the Great One, guarding its organs this whole time?" Cannonbolt flexed his claws. "Yes," Tygone replied honestly, clearly too far gone in his brainwashing. "It's just a giant stink bug. What's there to protect?" Cannonbolt muttered dryly. "How dare you? Blaspheming the Great One, prepare to die!" Tygone roared, his expression twisting with fury. Planting his massive legs, he charged forward like a rampaging beast. "Bring it on!" Cannonbolt snorted, curling into a ball. He'd been waiting for this. "Intruder! Get out of the Great One's body!" Homungusaur's bloodshot eyes flared as he clenched his rocky fists and unleashed a thunderous roar, slamming his fist forward. Cannonbolt spun rapidly, dodging the blow with ease before countering with a powerful collision. Homungusaur swung his tail like a club, ready to strike back, but Cannonbolt was already anticipating it. He stopped abruptly, slamming himself into a thick cluster of sinewy tendons. Crack, snap! The dense insect tendons, unbelievably tough, served perfectly as a makeshift slingshot. Cannon bolts spun wildly against them, storing up massive energy. Stop it right now! Don't you dare harm the Great One! Blinded by madness, the Homungusaur charged straight at him. Power charged! Cannon bolt shouted, releasing himself from the slingshot and ramming straight into his foe. Boom! The violent impact sent Tygone flying sideways like a snapped kite, tearing through several veins before crashing hard into the ground. Homungusaur lay sprawled in a pile of flesh, momentarily unable to move. Cannon bolt seized the advantage, spinning rapidly as he shot upward, ready to deliver another devastating strike. Suddenly, a sharp gust of wind swept past him. Cannon bolt's instincts flared someone else was here. But he didn't stop. His defense in ball form was nearly impenetrable. He could take a hit. Clang! A blood-red spike ripped through the air, gleaming wickedly as it slammed into the yellow iron sphere with a piercing screech. The spike shattered and fell, but the impact threw Cannon bolt's aim off, sending him crashing into another section of the creature's body and tearing through part of its inner organs. Hiss! The entire body of the Great One convulsed violently, shaking like an earthquake. The monster was in pain. The tremors lasted several seconds before fading. When Cannon bolt steadied himself, he finally saw his attacker clearly. A humanoid torso with a serpent's tail. Crimson skin. Slender build, about 2 meters tall. Its scarlet eyes had slit pupils, and its hair writhed like living snakes. Sharp spikes jutted from the backs of its hands, the source of that last attack. Beside it stood the Homungusaur, Tygone. Both glared coldly at Cannon bolt. "And who are you supposed to be?" Cannon bolt asked, narrowing his eyes. "Red Spike Snake," the serpent alien hissed. "If you'd like to support my work and unlock advanced chapters, you can follow me on Patreon. Up to 50 chapters ahead for now. Patreon.com/pinksnake. Chapter 134, Chapter 134, Red Spike Snake. Yellowstone National Park. Once lush trees had decayed into grotesque heaps of remains, their stench choking the air. The soil beneath their roots had melted into a foul, reeking sludge, spreading outward to form an endless sea of rot. Mountain ranges crumbled one after another, as though drained of all strength, snapped in half by some unstoppable, monstrous force before tumbling down with earth-shaking crashes. High above, Stinkfly beat his wings, circling through the murky sky as he clashed fiercely with the alien trio. Grandpa Max and Gwen had already been moved to a nearby cave, safe for the time being. A battle of this scale was something Ben would never let them get involved in. "I wonder how Cuz is doing out there?" Stinkfly rasped, glancing toward the distant red glow. That was the Great One, the embodiment of destruction. Wherever it passed, life withered, stars died, and nothing was spared. "Hope Lucian can squash that overgrown bug," Stinkfly muttered, a rare glint of murderous intent flashing in his eyes, a sign of just how serious things had become. Buzz! A sharp streak of purple energy sliced through the air from behind, aimed straight for Stinkfly's tail, ready to split him in two. Feeling the powerful gust as the attack tore through the air, Stinkfly twisted aside at the last moment, barely evading it. He turned, glaring at the three aliens before him, his fists clenching in anger. "These damned bug-worshipping cultists! Filthy Lepidopteran! I don't know why you've appeared on Earth, but this must be the Great One's divine will," the purple axe alien snarled, his face twisted in a vicious grin. "Destiny decrees that you and this planet will perish together. I believe the Great One will once again reveal its divine miracle to cleanse this tainted world," Frog Eyes declared with solemn reverence, raising both arms toward the heavens. "Earth, we've heard that humans here constantly slaughter each other, trapped in foolish, meaningless conflict. To end your suffering, the Great One descended to save all living beings. Such mercy toward the universe moves us to endless admiration." The six-armed yellow alien lifted all six arms, his bloodshot eyes gleaming as he shouted. Give thanks for the Great One's glorious blessing. Give thanks for the Great One's glorious blessing, the other two echoed in unison. Stinkfly's mandibles clicked in fury. Give thanks, my ass. That thing's a demon. Ignorant wretch. How dare you blaspheme the Great One's name? Frog Eye's forehead glowed, firing a beam of purple light. Stinkfly fired back, ejecting thick green slime from his eyes, reeking with a noxious stench. The two attacks collided midair, vaporizing in a burst of steam. Let's finish it together, shouted the six-armed yellow alien. Agreed. The trio darted forward on their hoverboards, energy surging as they launched their assault. Let's see how you freaks handle a real hero. A sharp gleam flashed in Stinkfly's eyes. Unflinching, he spread his wings wide and charged, plunging headlong into battle with the alien trio. Inside the stone cave, Grandpa Max's expression was grim as he stared out at the Great One in the distance and the decay spreading all around. He let out a quiet sigh. Everything now depends on Lucian. Everywhere except this natural stone cave had already been corroded. On the surface, the ground still looked the same, but beneath, it had rotted through, turning into a vast swamp. Anyone who stepped in would find it almost impossible to escape. He and Gwen couldn't fly, which meant they couldn't leave the cave, let alone get anywhere near the Great One. Whether Earth can be saved, it's all up to Cuz now, Gwen murmured softly, worry clouding her bright eyes. She couldn't stop thinking about him. What was happening to Lucian inside that creature? Was he okay? Or had something gone wrong? Lost in thought, Gwen sat on a rock, her face heavy with concern. Rustle, rustle. A strange sound suddenly came from behind her. Gwen spun around, her face draining of color. Ah! What is that? Several purple vines, as if alive, slithered across the cold stone, writhing toward them. Even stranger, each vine ended in a gaping mouth that opened and closed, letting out eerie hissing noises. It must be the stink bug's venom, it's contaminated the life forms on the surface, Grandpa Max said as he rushed over. Seeing the grotesque vines closing in, Gwen quickly raised her hand and cast her spell. Dozens of shimmering aqua arrows formed around her, hovering like silver needles before shooting toward the encroaching vines. Clang! Clang! The arrows struck with sharp metallic sounds, bursting into sparks as they hit the vines, but the attack scattered harmlessly in the air. It didn't work. Gwen gasped, stunned. That venom's too strong. It's turned regular vines into deadly weapons. Grandpa Max pulled the laser pistol from his belt and fired. Bang! Bang! Blue energy bolts pierced several vines clean through. They went limp, collapsing like broken machinery. But within seconds, they began to knit back together and surged forward once again. Gwen began chanting a new spell, summoning a mighty water dragon that coiled before her. Steam filled the air as it roared forward with violent force. Water Dragon Soul! Boom! The explosion shook the cave as the dragon tore through the vines, shredding them to pulp. The remains melted into purple sludge, lifeless and unable to regenerate. Phew, finally got them, Gwen sighed, wiping the sweat from her brow. Rustle, rustle. Another sound echoed from outside the cave. Both of them froze, slowly turning toward the entrance. A swarm of mutated vines twisting in shades of blue, green, and violet crawled toward them, drawn by the scent of life within the cave. Gwen's body tensed again. She began chanting louder, conjuring another spell as Grandpa Max took his stance beside her, twin pistols blazing as they fought to hold the vines back. Inside the giant insect's body, darkness loomed thick with a faint, metallic stench. At the base, a pool of radiant white energy pulsed softly, the life force drawn from Earth itself, feeding the Great One's body. Cannonbolt stood near the glowing pool, facing down Red Spike Snake and Humongousaur. The air between them buzzed with tension, seconds away from erupting into violence. Red Spike Snake? Don't tell me you're another one of the Great One's servants, Cannonbolt's deep voice rumbled, his eyes glinting in the white light. "Exactly," Red Spike Snake said coolly. "We are loyal followers. Any being who threatens the Great One must be destroyed." As he spoke, the spikes on his fists extended and retracted freely, gleaming like blades just like Wolverine's claws, built for both close combat and ranged strikes. "So that's how he deflected my attack earlier," Cannonbolt thought. "Those spikes could detach like spears and regenerate right after." "Red Spike Snake, this intruder wounded the Great One. We can't let him live." Humongousaur roared, his fists clenching tight. "Then, we eliminate him." A flash of crimson lit up Red Spike Snake's eyes. He yanked the spike from his left arm, extending it into a long, razor-edged blood spear and lunged straight at Cannonbolt with deadly speed. Chapter 135, Chapter 135, Invisible? 2 against 1. Cannonbolt snorted coldly, curling into a yellow iron ball as it spun wildly. As the pinnacle of his species' genetics, he knew no fear even facing two opponents alone, he remained utterly unafraid. Whoosh! Ferocious crimson spikes, their edges gleaming, surged toward him at breakneck speed, carrying terrifying kinetic energy. Cannonbolt sensed the danger and dodged sharply, rolling behind an organ. SSSSHHH. The razor-sharp blood spear sliced through like a knife through butter, piercing over a dozen pulsing tendons in succession. A torrent of crimson fluid spurted forth as the spear slammed into the fleshy wall above. Gah! The Great One let out an agonized roar as his insides churned violently. "Idiot!" The Humongousaur Tygone staggered, glaring at the red spike snake beside him. "We're inside the Great One's body. Stop using ranged attacks." The red spike snake sneered coldly, offering no reply. Twisting its agile tail, it charged straight toward the nearby Cannonbolt. Raising its crimson fist, it bared crystalline spikes and roared, slamming forward to crush the flesh sphere flat. Cannonbolt spun rapidly. Its elastic sphere stomped hard on the ground, instantly launching itself into the air to meet the red spike snake's attack. Boom! The red spike snake's fist collided with the yellow iron ball, erupting in a deafening crash. Ah! The red spike snake let out a piercing scream, staggering backward uncontrollably. Clutching his arm, he felt a numbing sensation. The spikes on his fist were nearly shattered, the pain excruciating. "You bastard, are you made of iron?" The red spike snake gritted his teeth, his chest heaving with rage. "Pretty much. Probably harder than iron," Cannonbolt replied nonchalantly. "This really ticks me off." The spikes on red spike snake's hand surged, transforming into two crimson blades that slashed toward Cannonbolt in unison, intent on shredding him to pieces. Meanwhile, Tygone had already crept silently behind Cannonbolt. Raising both fists, a sly grin touched his lips. "You're finished, intruder." Boom! The strike missed. The yellow iron ball dodged Humongousaur's sneak attack with remarkable agility, smashing an organ in the process. Unfortunately, the Great One's heart was positioned at the very top. Otherwise, Cannonbolt could have ended it right then. Just then, the enraged red spike snake arrived. "Die!" He wildly swung his barbed tail, conjuring crimson sword shadows that formed an impenetrable net, closing in on Cannonbolt. "Right on!" Cannonbolt unleashed his full power, spinning violently as he smashed through obstructing tendons, crashing toward his opponent. Boom! The arrogantly defiant red spike snake instantly felt a crushing pressure in his chest, as if struck by an iron hammer. Nearly choking, he was sent flying backward at high speed. Gazing at the iron sphere still spinning mid-air, terror flashed through his vertical pupils. Could such terrifying defense truly exist? Spinning within, Cannonbolt remained oblivious to the red spike snake's inner turmoil. Beyond a slight prickling itch on his back, he felt nothing else. After being flung dozens of meters backward, the red spike snake transformed into a streak of light, crashing violently into the monstrous flesh wall and sending another wave of intense tremors rippling through it. The Homungusaur's form swayed, its clumsy physique struggling to maintain its balance. Your turn, loser. Cannon bolt swung with full force, sending the stunned Homungusaur hurtling through the air. Both of them crashed into the slick mass of organs, their bodies racked with pain as if they had been smashed to pieces. Neither could get back up. Cannon bolt looked up at the massive heart above, buried beneath countless layers of tendons, pulsing powerfully. It's time to end this. He curled his body, transforming into a fearsome yellow iron ball, ready to launch himself upward. Destroy the Great One's heart, and it would be over, the earth would be saved. Suddenly, a strand of white spider silk shot from the side, sticking to the iron sphere and pinning him in place. What the? Cannon bolt reverted to his humanoid form, scanning his surroundings warily. He reached behind him with a stubby claw and tore away the sticky web. To his right, perched on a thick, pulsing vein, stood a blue monkey. It was small and wiry, with 4 arms and 4 eyes, tufts of fur drooping from its temples, and a long, agile tail swaying behind it. Spider monkey. Cannon bolt froze for a moment. Another alien hero? No, it wasn't. This one was just an arachnachimp, a member of spider monkey's species, not an omnitrix hero. Just like the Homungusaur Tigone earlier. Let me guess, another loyal slave of the Great One, Cannon bolt said evenly, his gaze calm. Correct. My name is Eric, and I vow eternal loyalty to the Great and Supreme Great One. Spider monkey screeched, scratching at the fur on his chest. So how many of you are there? You might as well all come out at once. No sooner had he spoken than a gust of wind slammed into his face. Cannon bolt couldn't see anything, but his instincts kicked and he stepped back immediately. Pretty quick reflexes. A sly, mocking voice slithered through the air ahead of him. An invisible enemy. Things just got tricky. 3 powerful aliens, and one could turn invisible. Even Cannon bolt, with his heavy defenses, might not withstand that. At that moment, Homungusaur and Red Spike Snake reappeared, joining the fight. Together with Spider Monkey and the Invisible One, they surrounded Cannon bolt completely. All together now. For the glory of the Great One. Homungusaur roared, his voice booming like thunder. Hiss! Attack! Red Spike Snake flicked his tongue, extending crimson barbs from his arms. Hunt down the intruder, a voice snickered from the void, echoing from every direction so that no one could tell where it came from. Long live the Great One! Spider Monkey Eric leapt down from above, his tail coiling with white spider silk before firing a web barrage toward Cannon bolt at lightning speed. Boom! A flurry of vicious attacks came crashing down all at once, surrounding Cannon bolt in an overwhelming wave of pressure. Cannon bolt roared, spinning violently. He smashed through the encirclement and launched himself upward with a powerful kick. Below, 3 ruthless aliens were waiting for his descent. And another one hid somewhere unseen. Cannon bolt thrust his clawed hand to the omnitrix on his chest, and in a flash of green light, he transformed into a blue wolf. His muscular frame was sharply defined, covered in cobalt fur, his claws gleaming black like obsidian. A fierce lupin head rose high, golden eyes burning bright as if they could pierce all illusion. The Omnitrix emblem pulsed proudly on his chest. The Loboan from the planet Luna, Lobo Blitzwolfer. Boom! Blitzwolfer crashed down, leaving cracks across the fleshy ground. Standing tall and fierce, he faced his enemies without a shred of fear. What? He can still transform? Tigone's jaw dropped in disbelief. Humph! There's so many of us, how could we possibly lose? Red Spike Snake scoffed. Yet, if we attack together, we'll take him down for sure. Spider Monkey Eric shouted. Tap! 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 A faint sound of footsteps echoed behind Blitzwolfer. He turned his head but saw nothing. He sighed, pretending to drop his guard. Then, in the next instant, he spun around, claws flashing as he lunged back, his sharp wolf talons closing around an invisible figure with crushing force. If you'd like to support my work and unlock advanced chapters, you can follow me on Patreon. Up to 50 chapters ahead for now. Patreon.com/pinksnake. Chapter 136, Chapter 136, Chameleon. Ah! Let me go! The smooth figure thrashed wildly, struggling to break free from Blitzwolfer's claws. But his grip was too strong, escaping by force alone was impossible. Terrified, the creature's outline shimmered and faded, revealing its true form before Blitzwolfer's eyes. Slender and covered in strange markings, it resembled a lizard standing upright, slick and slippery like an eel. 3 eyes glowed red, green, and blue in an inverted triangle on its face, radiating a sly, sinister aura. "So it's you, Chameleon," Blitzwolfer growled, tightening his claws. This was one of Ben's alien heroes, gifted with invisibility and an ultra-slick body that made it nearly impossible to capture. You, how did you find me?" Chameleon stammered, fear creeping into its voice. It was certain it had hidden perfectly without leaving a trace. "A wolf's sense of smell is very sharp," Blitzwolfer replied calmly. He had caught Chameleon's scent long ago, only pretending not to notice to lure it into his trap. Creatures like Blitzwolfer and Wild Mutt were natural counters to cunning aliens like Chameleon. They could vanish from sight, but their scent always betrayed them. "Ah! Help me!" Chameleon screamed, its hoarse voice cracking. The other 3 exchanged quick glances, nodded, and charged forward. If Chameleon died, their own situation would worsen. Red Spike Snake rushed ahead, pulling the sharp spines from his fists. They gleamed with a crimson chill, swirling with violent wind as he lunged forward like lightning. Murder flashed in Blitzwolfer's eyes. He had planned to throw Chameleon as a shield and let it be caught in the attack, but then reconsidered. Keeping it alive might prove useful. In an instant, Blitzwolfer's powerful legs launched him upward like a swift swallow, soaring above the insect's organs to dodge the oncoming blood spear. Don't kill me!" Chameleon pleaded. At this range, no one could save him. "Relax. Just take a nap," Blitzwolfer said with a grin. He raised his hand, which glowed blue and formed a blade. With a sharp strike to the back of Chameleon's head, the creature stiffened, its eyes dimming as it collapsed onto the giant insect's organs, completely unconscious. To be sure, Blitzwolfer tore some nearby tendons and bound Chameleon tightly, securing the knots until they held firm. As he finished, Spider Monkey appeared. Clinging to the tree-like tissue with his slender arms, he glared with bright green eyes and shouted, "Let it go!" From his tail, Eric fired a stream of sticky white webbing, shooting straight toward Blitzwolfer at incredible speed. Blitzwolfer turned, leaping down to his original spot. With the assassin dealt with, things would be much simpler now. "Intruder! Such disrespect will not be forgiven by the Great One," roared the Humongousaur. Tygon, the most fanatical among them, was a devout follower of the Great One. Any blasphemy against his god was unforgivable in his eyes. "I don't need forgiveness from that overgrown bug," Blitzwolfer sneered. "It won't get the chance anyway." With a powerful kick, his muscles coiled and released like springs as he lunged toward Humongousaur. The massive alien extended his thick palm, catching Blitzwolfer's claws. The two clashed fiercely, their strength erupting in a violent standoff. Why doesn't the Great One have a chance?" Tygon tightened his grip, trying to push the blasphemer over. "Because your Great One is about to die." Blitzwolfer refused to be outdone, steadying his footing as threads of insect fluid seeped from beneath him. "Ah! I'll kill you!" Humongousaur's fury erupted, his entire body straining with power. Blitzwolfer's lips curled slightly. This reaction was exactly what he wanted. He stopped clashing head-on with Humongousaur and used the momentum to his advantage. With a swift maneuver, he flung Humongousaur over his shoulder, slamming him violently into the ground. Thud. Humongousaur took the full brunt of the impact, but felt no pain. Consumed by rage, he grabbed Blitzwolfer's leg and hurled him with tremendous force. Blitzwolfer's form blurred into a blue streak, snapping several tendons along his path before finally skidding to a stop. Before he could regain balance, a crimson sword flash slashed toward his face. Reacting on instinct, Blitzwolfer flipped backward, narrowly avoiding the deadly strike. Nice reflexes, but you're done for. Red Spike Snake sneered from across the way. Blitzwolfer's heart sank. His feet felt sticky, as if glued to the ground super-strength webbing. Spider Monkey's silk. Eric clung to the branch-like structure above. Though shaped like a monkey, he looked more like a venomous spider. Red Spike Snake, finish it off. Eric screeched sharply. Got it. Red Spike Snake's sharp barbs glinted as he whipped his tail and lunged forward like lightning. Zzzt. The crimson spear tore through the air, its tip expanding rapidly in Blitzwolfer's pupils. Suddenly, Blitzwolfer opened his jaws, splitting them into 4 sections like a blooming flower. Roar! A green ultrasonic blast erupted from his mouth, surging with unstoppable force and sending Red Spike Snake flying. The serpent screamed as it crashed through several organs, landing in a pool of sticky insect fluid. Its head spun, dazed and stunned. Blitzwolfer moved at blinding speed, closing the distance in a single leap. He raised his claw, ready to strike. But a brown shadow appeared behind him. Before he could react, Humongousaur wrapped his massive arms around Blitzwolfer, locking his neck in a crushing grip. You're asking for it. Blitzwolfer snarled, driving his elbow hard into Humongousaur's abdomen with a heavy thud. Any creature that dares offend the Great One is Tygon's enemy. Humongousaur's blood-red eyes blazed with rage. He refused to let go. Blitzwolfer's vision blurred, his breathing labored as his strength began to fade. Above, Spider Monkey crept across the web of tendons, faint light glinting in his eyes. Ha ha ha! Red Spike Snake stood, shaking insect fluid from his body. Tygon, keep holding him. I'll finish this freakish wolf. Right. Eliminate the intruder. Tygon roared. As Red Spike Snake charged in, Blitzwolfer opened his mouth, trying to unleash another ultrasonic blast, but his throat was trapped in Tygon's hold. He couldn't get any sound out. Mad, you forced my hand. Snarling, Blitzwolfer bared his chainsaw-like fangs and sank them into Humongousaur's arm. Ah! Humongousaur roared in agony, finally letting go. None of the earlier blows compared to the pain of that single bite. Blitzwolfer broke free and retreated, escaping their attack range. As Blitzwolfer, his teeth and claws were his deadliest weapons. But since this was Lucian's first transformation, he wasn't yet used to fighting with his fangs. Beep beep beep. The Omnitrix on Blitzwolfer's chest suddenly flashed, erupting with a harsh red light. Lucian's eyes widened as he stared at his hands in disbelief. Damn it! Of all times to revert, why now? Ha ha, Earthling! You're out of options now, aren't you? Red Spike Snake extended his venomous barbs, wielding them like spears as he slowly advanced. If you'd like to support my work and unlock advanced chapters, you can follow me on Patreon. Up to 50 chapters ahead for now. Patreon.com/pinksnake. Chapter 137, Chapter 137, Execution. The Humongousaur and Red Spike Snake, fierce and menacing, closed in on Lucian. Hold on! Spider Monkey suddenly called out from above. What's the matter, Eric? Is there something you need? Red Spike Snake's crimson eyes flickered with confusion. Tygon gave him the same puzzled look. Eric descended from above, his tail hanging from a strand of spider silk. Landing lightly, he scurried to Lucian's side and sneered coldly. We shouldn't kill him here. What? Eric, what nonsense are you talking about? Tygon immediately shouted, clenching his fists. Red Spike Snake's eyes narrowed, but he didn't lower his spear. His tone turned cold. Eric, what trick are you trying to pull now? Among the 4 guardians of the Great One, Eric had joined the latest only about 2 years ago. Compared to the other 3, he was still a newcomer. Red Spike Snake had always doubted Eric's loyalty, but since he'd behaved himself during his time here, she hadn't bothered to confront him. Still, his sudden move to stop them from killing the intruder instantly reignited her suspicions. Relax. Eric waved his hand and glanced at Lucian beside him. What I mean is we're still inside the Great One's body. So what? Tygon asked mockingly. I propose we take this earthling outside for execution. That way, we won't defile the Great One's sacred body. Spider Monkey Eric spoke with feigned reverence, raising his 4 slender arms as if in worship. Red Spike Snake shook his head. No. This earthling is full of tricks. He can transform into powerful aliens. We can't take that risk. I agree with Eric, Humongousaur said with a firm nod. But... Before Red Spike Snake could finish, Humongousaur cut him off. Eric is right. The Great One must not be stained with the blood of a blasphemer. We'll take him outside and execute him there. His voice boomed like thunder. Spider Monkey covered his mouth, barely stifling a laugh. When Red Spike Snake turned her head, he quickly returned to his solemn expression. Lucian caught the entire exchange clearly. Just what side was this Eric on? Could he be an undercover agent sent by some faction, hiding for years, waiting for the chance to destroy the Great One? Red Spike Snake had initially wanted to end things here and now, rejecting Eric's idea outright. But with Tygon so insistent, he could only sigh. He knew all too well how fanatically loyal Tygon was to the Great One, so he decided not to argue further. Let's move. Red Spike Snake snapped, then suddenly added, oh, and bring the Merlini Sapien too. No problem. Spider Monkey leapt away, landing beside the unconscious Cham alien. He strained with all his might, tearing through the tough tendons until he finally freed the slick alien. After shaking him a few times and finding no response, Eric simply picked him up and hurried back. He's still out, Eric muttered, scratching his head helplessly. Bring them all. We're heading out together, Red Spike Snake ordered, glancing toward the Great One's mouth as he dragged Lucian forward. Humongousaur followed behind, carrying the limp Cham alien in his massive hands. As for Spider Monkey, he took one last look at the Great One's organs, shook his head, and quickly caught up with the others. Soon, the group emerged into the open. With the surrounding soil rotted and unable to support their weight, they climbed atop the insect's shell, preparing for the brutal execution. Scanning the barren wasteland, Humongousaur's eyes flickered as he spoke solemnly, the Great One will soon perform another divine miracle. Red Spike Snake nodded slightly. I've followed the Great One for many years and witnessed countless such magnificent scenes, yet every time, I still can't suppress the awe in my heart. Enough. Let's begin the execution of the intruder. Humongousaur clenched his fists, unable to contain his impatience. Red Spike Snake turned toward the unconscious Cham alien. This one's sleeping like the dead. What a shame he won't get to see the intruder's final moment. Invader, do you have any last words? Humongousaur extended his massive arm, grabbing Lucian and hoisting him up. Could you let me go? Lucian asked. Impossible. Red Spike Snake stepped forward, the sharp barbs on his body glinting menacingly. You're a dangerous earthling. Keeping you alive would only endanger the Great One. Die. Red Spike Snake lifted his blood-red spear and thrust it straight at Lucian's chest. Suddenly, a powerful suction force pulled from behind. What? Before Red Spike Snake could react, Spider Monkey's web yanked him backward, flinging him through the air before he crashed hard into the muddy swamp. Humongousaur spun around, his eyes blazing red as he glared at the ambushing Spider Monkey. Eric! What are you doing? Beep. A familiar sound chimed as the Omnitrix on Lucian's wrist flashed, returning to its deep green hue. Fully charged. Taking advantage of Humungusaur's distraction, Lucian slammed his hand down on the Omnitrix, twisting the dial and pressing it firmly. Thud. A towering figure emerged, light green and sharp-edged, its entire body gleaming like carved crystal. Diamond Head stood tall and imposing, instantly breaking free from Humungusaur's grip before launching a powerful punch. Boom! The crystal fist struck with tremendous force, sending Humungusaur hurtling through the air until he crashed beside Red Spike Snake. Both sank deep into the decaying mud, careful not to struggle too hard. Any movement would only drag them under faster. Nice work, Petrosapien! Spider Monkey cheered excitedly, jumping in place. Why did you help me? Diamond Head asked, his tone steady. Help you? Spider Monkey tilted his head. No, I'm helping myself. What do you mean? I'll explain later. Let's deal with the enemies first, Eric replied. Diamond Head nodded. If this went on, Earth wouldn't last much longer. Whoosh! A sharp spike shot toward Diamond Head's face. His arm instantly morphed into a blade, slicing the projectile cleanly in two with a swift motion. Damn it! Red Spike Snake cursed, gritting his teeth. Then, a loud voice echoed from afar. The hero arrives! XLR8 blurred into a streak of blue light, his legendary speed propelling him effortlessly across the rotting ground. In just a few heartbeats, he came to a stop right in front of Diamond Head. Chapter 138, Chapter 138, DNA Acquisition. Then, Diamond Head turned around. Hey, cuz. I'm here to help. XLR8 pulled back his mask. Where's Grandpa and the others? I got them to safety, XLR8 replied, then glanced at Spider Monkey beside him. Cool. What a stylish monkey. Where'd you find him? Can he do somersaults? My name's Eric, Spider Monkey said, scratching his head. A spark of inspiration flashed through Diamond Head's mind. He turned to Eric and said, use your web to pull Tygone and Red Spike Snake up here. Spider Monkey's eyes widened. Are you crazy? If I bring those two up, they'll kill me. It's fine. I know what I'm doing, Diamond Head said calmly, his tone steady and fearless. Fine, but if something goes wrong, it's on you, Spider Monkey muttered under his breath. He fired a thick strand of web from his tail, sticking it to Humungusaur and Red Spike Snake. Pulling hard, he nearly got dragged into the swamp himself. Diamond Head reacted instantly, grabbing the tough web and hauling it back with force. XLR8 followed his lead, throwing all his strength into pulling alongside them. Working together, the three of them managed to drag Humungusaur and Red Spike Snake up and fling them onto the pink insect shell. The moment the two broke free of the muck, fury blazed in their eyes as they lunged straight at Diamond Head and the others. Startled, Eric leapt aside. He knew he was no match for either of them in a direct fight. Diamond Head raised his hand, forming a massive crystal hammer in midair, and swung it down with explosive force. Boom! The once fierce Humungusaur took the blow squarely to the head. His strength vanished instantly as he stumbled backward, collapsing face first onto the insect shell, dazed and dizzy. Whoosh! XLR8 became a streak of blue light, speeding toward Red Spike Snake. Kinoceleran. Another distant species. Red Spike Snake roared, swinging the spiked fists on his arms in a wild frenzy at XLR8. He couldn't understand why so many alien species had appeared on this tiny planet called Earth. Slash! 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 The deadly spikes cut through the air, creating crimson afterimages like a storm of blades that engulfed XLR8. Hey! You're way too slow! XLR8 taunted as he darted around, easily dodging every attack. Damn it! Red Spike Snake snarled as his spikes extended, fusing into two crimson spears that crossed in a vicious strike toward his target. SSSHHH. A flash of emerald light sliced across Red Spike Snake's vision. Both crimson spears shattered in an instant, clanging against the hard surface of the insect shell. Red Spike Snake turned, his snake-like pupils filled with horror. You. Diamond Head snorted coldly, retracting his gleaming crystal blade. He clenched his fist and slammed it into Red Spike Snake's chest. Caught off guard, Red Spike Snake was sent flying and crashed to the ground. Crystalline chains spread rapidly across his body, locking him tightly against the insect shell. Beside him, Humongousaur Tigone suffered the same fate, his body completely restrained by Diamond Head's crystal bindings. With their strength, there was no way they could break free. Watching the scene unfold, Eric's eyes widened in disbelief, unable to hide the shock rising within him. Wow! You're one tough Petrosapien. Eric swished his tail, eyeing Diamond Head with admiration. You're way stronger than Big Meatball and Little Wolf Dog. Why didn't you transform sooner? Those are Cannonbolt and Blitzwolfer, Diamond Head corrected. Same thing, Eric waved it off, then changed the subject. By the way, why'd you have me pull those two out? Wouldn't it be better to let the Great One's minions sink in the swamp? To collect their DNA samples, of course. No point wasting a good opportunity, Diamond Head said with a grin. Collect DNA. XLR8's eyes brightened with excitement. Exactly. Diamond Head stepped up to him, touching a finger to the Omnitrix on Ben's wrist and cancelling his transformation. "Cuz, what do I do? Tell me." Ben was practically bouncing with excitement, knowing he was about to get a new alien form. "Follow me." Diamond Head led Ben to the restrained Humongousaur. Humongousaur, wrapped in a crystal vest, was firmly locked against the insect shell, unable to move. He roared furiously, "Let me go, you vile invader! The Great One will never forgive you!" His entire body was bound, limbs stretched wide in a cross shape, sealed tight by crystal shackles that he couldn't break free from no matter how hard he struggled. Diamond Head raised his hand and released one of the restraints on Humongousaur's arm. "You're asking for death!" Humongousaur bellowed, swinging a massive fist straight at Diamond Head's face. Diamond Head caught his wrist with ease, his grip like iron. He then turned his head toward Ben and gestured for him to come closer. Ben hurried over, eyes wide with anticipation. "Ah! Petrosapien, let me go!" Tigone struggled violently, trying to break free. "Stop yelling," Diamond Head said calmly, pressing the alien's wrist toward Ben's watch. "Damn it! Great One, please avenge me!" Humongousaur cried out, his eyes filling with rage and despair. As a servant of the Great One, he had once been revered. Now he was reduced to a mere specimen, his DNA harvested like livestock in a pen. The humiliation was unbearable. Rib. Under Diamond Head's immense strength, Humongousaur's thick claw finally made contact with the Omnitrix. A strange sound effect chimed as the Omnitrix replica glowed yellow, beginning to absorb his genetic data. "What an amazing alien watch," Eric murmured, clearly impressed. Ben's face lit up as he stared at the glowing yellow screen. "Awesome! Now I've got Humongousaur's DNA. Thanks, cuz." Diamond Head waved dismissively. "There are a few more aliens. Let's get them all." With his help, Red Spike Snake's and Cameline's DNA were soon collected as well. Ben's grin widened. "This is incredible. Way better than getting the latest Sumo Slammers game." "One more," Diamond Head said, glancing toward Spider Monkey. "Eric, donate your DNA too." Although Diamond Head didn't fully understand Eric's motives, he could sense no hostility from him. "Sure, no problem." Eric agreed enthusiastically, clearly enjoying himself. Moments later, Spider Monkey's genetic data was also uploaded into the Omnitrix replica. Rumble. Suddenly, the pale ground trembled violently. Cracks spread in every direction, splitting open like a world ending in chaos. In the distance, trees that had long since rotted into sludge solidified into white fragments, only to be shredded by a raging wind and carried into the air as dust. The Great Ones draining the planet's energy dry. Spider Monkey shouted in horror. Then let's go. Time to finish off this giant stink bug. Without hesitation, Diamond had vanished in a flash of light, leaping back into the Great One's body. Eric scooped up Ben, who was still fiddling with his watch, and bounded after him, diving into the shadowy depths below. If you'd like to support my work and unlock advanced chapters, you can follow me on Patreon. Up to 50 chapters ahead for now. patreon.com/pinksnake. Chapter 139, Chapter 139, Revenge. Inside the Great One's body. The space was dim, filled with multicolored organs that pulsed rhythmically. Countless crimson veins twisted and crisscrossed in every direction, weaving into a massive web that stretched across the ceiling above them. Not far ahead lay a glowing pool of energy, radiating a brilliant white light like a divine mirror reflected in Lucian's eyes. That was Earth's energy being endlessly siphoned away by the Great One. Lucian raised his wrist, pressed the Omnitrix, switched forms, and slammed his hand down. Ben immediately followed suit, striking his watch with force. Thud! Twin flashes of emerald light burst forth, nearly blinding Eric. Humongousaur! Ben transformed, roaring with exhilaration. With brown-yellow skin and a towering, muscular frame, the Humongousaur's thick tail whipped around, snapping through the Great One's tendons and sending violent tremors throughout the creature's body. Roar! Humongousaur clenched his fists and charged forward, his powerful legs stomping into the writhing mass of organs ahead. He unleashed a barrage of punches, every strike pulverizing the Great One's inner tissues. The creature's pained howls echoed through the chamber as its body convulsed violently, the tremors spreading like a cataclysmic quake. The ground shook so hard it was difficult to stay upright. Eric shot webbing from his tail and anchored himself to a tendon, narrowly avoiding being crushed by the raging organs. Ugh, once I get back to Aranyasamiya, I'm eating a whole mountain of bananas to make up for this, he muttered, clinging tightly to the elastic tissue. Roar! A feral tiger's roar tore through the chaos. Eric turned toward the sound, his eyes widening in disbelief. It was a completely naked apoplexian. Wrath moved with blinding agility, a streak of orange light tearing through the Great One's organs. Wherever he passed, everything exploded into shreds: organs, veins, nothing survived. The black claws on his forearms slashed wildly, cutting through tendon as thick as steel cables as easily as slicing tofu. Foam flecked from his mouth as he shouted at the Great One between blows. Listen up, you cosmic, energy-sucking stink bug. Just cause you're big doesn't mean you're tough. Wrath's inside you now, and with one move, I'll tear you apart. His fury burned hotter with every word, his voice thundering like a cannon. You disgusting bug! If you'd just kneel and knock that head of yours on the ground a few times, maybe Wrath would show mercy and send you off in peace. Wait, damn it! Wrath's expression twisted in outrage. I forgot. You don't even have a head, do you? How are you supposed to bow to Wrath? Infuriated even further by his own realization, Wrath leapt down to the Great One's lower body. All right, stink bug. Prepare yourself for Wrath's judgment. He clenched his fists, extending his razor-sharp claws, and slashed wildly across the interior walls. Streams of green fluid gushed out as the Great One screamed in agony, its entire body convulsing. Man, that apoplexian's incredible, though he's, still not wearing clothes, Eric muttered softly from above, careful not to be heard. Meanwhile, Humongousaur reached out his massive hand, gripping a cluster of tendons. With one forceful pull, he ripped them apart like noodles. Oh yeah! Who's the baddest now? He roared in triumph, laughing heartily as pride filled his chest. Under the combined assault of both aliens, the Great One could no longer endure. The energy it had stolen from Earth began surging back, the white pool beneath them glowing brighter as power flowed through its tentacles and returned to the planet below. The Great One, the once feared apex predator of the cosmos, the destroyer of worlds, was now reduced to pitiful screams under Humongousaur and Wrath's relentless onslaught, teetering at death's edge. Just 2 more minutes, and it would have devoured all of Earth's energy, consuming the planet entirely until it vanished into the cosmos like a speck of dust in time. But now, beaten to the brink, it was being forced to vomit that same energy back into the decaying world it had sought to consume. Roar! Covered in green slime, Wrath sprang forward, his legs coiling and releasing like springs. His claws gleamed like blades as they ripped through every organ in his path. Thwack! 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 Massive organs burst apart under his ferocious strikes, scattering chunks of flesh and spraying blood across the air, filling it with the stench of decay. Damn you, stinking bug! Get lost, you filthy pest! Wrath roared, driving his sharp claws straight through the Great One's heart. The brutal strike tore it apart, bursting in midair like a shower of crimson fireworks above them. Awesome! Humongousaur raised a thumbs up. When it comes to raw destruction, my cuz wins hands down. The Great One is dying. Excitement flared in Eric's eyes. With its heart destroyed, the Great One's body convulsed uncontrollably. Its remaining organs burst one after another, spewing foul green blood. The veins stretched and snapped, releasing an ear-piercing screech that echoed through its collapsing form. The massive insect body swelled like a balloon, expanding faster and faster until it burst through its hardened shell. With a deafening crack, it toppled into the decaying swamp below. Boom! A thunderous explosion followed as the Great One's body erupted, spraying waves of thick, blue-green insect fluid that rose like a tsunami and blanketed the sky. Fragments of its shell scattered and rained down, covering the land in a grim storm of organic debris. After a long silence, a single sharp claw broke through the layer of slime. Disgusting bug, Wrath muttered, dragging himself free from the viscous muck and shaking off the grime. At the same time, Humongousaur emerged from below, holding Eric tightly in his grip as he pulled him to safety. Beep! The Omnitrix on Humongousaur's chest began to blink, then flashed red. In a burst of light, he reverted to Ben. Wrath took a deep breath, thumping a fist against his chest before slapping his own Omnitrix, returning to his human form. Lucian turned toward Eric. You never did tell me why you turned on your allies earlier. What was that about? A sudden attack of conscience. He still remembered being caught by Red Spike Snake moments away from execution until Eric had insisted on taking him outside the Great One's body for the deed, only to strike against Red Spike Snake instead. The move had saved him, but Lucian hadn't understood why. I did it for revenge, Eric said, his eyes dark with hatred. If you'd like to support my work and unlock advanced chapters, you can follow me on Patreon. Up to 50 chapters ahead for now. Patreon.com/pinksnake. Chapter 140, Chapter 140, Journey to San Francisco. Revenge? Was your homeworld also destroyed by the Great One? Ben couldn't help but ask. No, no, no. Aranyasamiya is fine, Eric said quickly, shaking his head. Then what happened? That damned Great One destroyed my girlfriend's planet. I'll never forgive it. Eric growled, his voice tight with anger. Wait, your girlfriend? Ben's eyes widened. Yes. She's dead. Eric sighed heavily, then clenched his fists. That's why, 2 years ago, I pretended to be swayed by Tygon and joined the Great One's followers. I've been waiting ever since for the day I could kill that monster myself. That. I'm sorry for your loss, Ben said softly, patting Eric's head, unsure what else to say. If his own girlfriend had been killed by the Great One, he probably would have lost his mind too. Now your wish has come true. That stinking bug's as dead as it gets, Lucian said calmly. Eric nodded, sadness flickering in his eyes. "Hey, Eric, can I ask you something?" Ben spoke up suddenly. "What is it?" "Your girlfriend, what kind of alien was she?" Lucian's mouth twitched slightly. Of all the questions to ask. Still, it made sense. Ben was only 10, he didn't mean any harm, just pure curiosity. Eric hesitated. "She was an Arburian Pellerota." Lucian raised an eyebrow. That name sounded familiar. Arburian Pellerota. Wait a second, that was Cannonbolt's species. He hadn't expected Eric's girlfriend to be from the same race as Cannonbolt. But he couldn't wrap his head around it. How did a lanky monkey and a rotund rolling alien even end up together? One was all limbs and fur, the other a walking boulder. Could Eric even handle that? The thought made Lucian glance at him twice, trying not to laugh. Just then, sharp whistling sounds echoed from above. Frog Eye, Purple Axe Alien, and the six-armed yellow alien appeared, standing atop their hover discs as they descended toward the group. "They're the Great One's lackeys. They must be here for revenge." Eric snarled, eyes blazing with fury. Lucian and Ben exchanged a look, both preparing to fight. "Wait!" Frog Eye raised a hand, signaling for calm. Steering his hover disc forward, he stopped before Lucian. "I only wish to ask who killed the Great One," he said in a low, steady voice. "What, you want revenge?" Ben said, cracking his knuckles, ready to go. "It was me," Lucian replied evenly. Against these third-rate underlings, he didn't even need to take them seriously. Frog Eye nodded and drifted back toward his companions. Just as Ben was about to strike, the three of them suddenly dropped to their knees, bowing in Lucian's direction. "Long live the new Great One! Long live the new Great One!" The three knelt in unison, their expressions reverent and solemn, unchanged from before. Not long after, Humongousaur Tigone and Red Spike Snake approached as well. "Long live the new Great One!" Tigone roared, his thunderous voice echoing across the clearing. Though he had once been the Great One's most devoted follower, his faith had always been rooted in reverence for power itself. For Tigone, so long as a stronger and more terrifying being emerged, it made no difference who bore the title of Great One. Red Spike Snake, though clearly displeased, still dropped to his knees with the others, bowing respectfully before Lucian. "Rustle, rustle!" A faint sound of footsteps echoed nearby. From the emptiness, the figure of Cham Alien slowly emerged. "Greetings to the new Great One," Cham Alien said respectfully. Unlike Eric, who had infiltrated the Great One's ranks solely to exact revenge, these followers Tigone, Red Spike Snake, Cham Alien, and the rest had truly worshipped the Great One. In the end, Lucian dismissed them all, allowing each to return to their respective home worlds. However, aside from Spider Monkey and Cham Alien, the Great One had already destroyed the others' planets. So Lucian asked Eric to take them all to Aranyasamia to resettle. With the vast spider monkey population there, Lucian trusted they wouldn't dare act recklessly. And if enemies ever came knocking, these aliens could serve as a valuable defense force for the planet. To be honest, Lucian did have a bit of a personal motive. He'd considered keeping them around to help him fight future villains. But Earth hadn't officially made contact with alien civilizations yet. These aliens had no legal status, couldn't stay permanently, couldn't appear in public, and certainly couldn't hold jobs. Keep them hidden on Earth? He didn't have that kind of money. Just feeding someone like Tigone, the guy probably ate more in one meal than Lucian could afford in a month. It wasn't that Lucian didn't want to help them. He just couldn't afford to, and he didn't even have the space to house them. Whoosh! A massive alien spacecraft hovered above Yellowstone National Park. Under Frog Eye's command, the aliens began boarding one by one, preparing for their journey to Aranyasamia. "Lucian, thank you for helping me get my revenge," Eric said seriously, his fur rippling in the wind. "Without you, I might have gone my whole life without avenging her." "It's nothing," Lucian waved it off. "Go on. I'm sure it's been a long time since you've seen your home. Eric nodded. Then I'll be going. If you ever need anything, come find me on around Yasamiya. With that, he turned and scampered up the ramp into the ship. Whoosh! The sleek spacecraft ignited with a silver flare, its engines roaring as it launched skyward, vanishing into the endless clouds above. It's finally over, Lucian exhaled, the tension leaving his body at last. With the Great One destroyed, its vast reserves of energy had flowed back into Earth. The planet's ashen surface was quickly returning to its natural blue, bursting once again with life. And as for Ben, the ordeal had turned out to be a blessing in disguise. He'd gained 4 new alien forms and couldn't stop grinning about it. Lucian, on the other hand, hadn't recorded the DNA of Tygone or the others. The reason was simple, the Omnitrix didn't lack high-quality DNA, it only needed time to unlock it. Lucian didn't want to risk adding weaker genes that might compromise his future combat potential. Better to have nothing than something inferior. After all, every alien gene in the Omnitrix came from the absolute peak of its species. Tygone might have been powerful compared to most aliens, but even he couldn't match the true might of Humungousaur. Inside the rust bucket, Grandpa Max sat in the driver's seat, grinning from ear to ear. Now that was one unforgettable trip to the park. This old man hasn't felt a thrill like that in years. If I had the choice, I'd rather not experience it at all, Gwen muttered, clutching her clothes as she rushed into the bathroom to wash off the insect slime. Grandpa, where are we going next? Ben asked eagerly, his eyes full of excitement. San Francisco. Grandpa Max said, slamming his foot on the gas. Let's go have some real fun. Vroom. The rust bucket's engine roared to life as the world blurred past the windows, the scenery whipping by like time itself was speeding in reverse. Lucian closed his eyes, his consciousness sinking deep into his mind. Ding successfully eliminated the evil Great One. Earth has been saved from destruction. Reward, powerful hero chest. The mechanical voice echoed clearly in his head. Open it, Lucian commanded silently. Way big, come on, way big. Or maybe Atomix. Clockwork would be great too. Echo. Not bad. Arctiguana? Blocks? Maybe Frankenstrike, or Brainstorm. A moment later, Lucian froze. Ding, powerful hero chest opened successfully. Unlocked alien hero, feedback. Chapter 141, Chapter 141, Sumo Slammers 2.1. The next morning, San Francisco. The golden sunset hung on the eastern horizon, shyly hiding behind clusters of skyscrapers and spilling warm light across the city. On the busy pedestrian street, a long line wound past the sales kiosk like a crawling black dragon. From the kiosk window, staff periodically handed out boxes containing an ornate game cartridge. The cover showed a fat sumo wrestler with a little ponytail, posed for battle. Awesome! I finally got it, a freckle-faced boy shouted, clutching the cartridge to his chest. Bought it? Move along, there's a huge line behind you, a black man shouted from behind, clearly annoyed. The freckled boy laughed and bounced away, not caring about the man's sour face. Pfft, it's just a crappy game, the man sneered. Next, called a staff member at the kiosk. Hey, it's my turn. It's my turn. Ha ha ha. The black man practically danced to the window, heart pounding, his expression changing faster than flipping a page. In the long line, Lucian and the others stood in the middle, waiting for their turn to buy the cartridge. We've been standing here 2 hours and the line barely moved. My legs are killing me, Gwen complained, squatting to rub her calves. Nerd, I told you to exercise more, Ben said from the front, tiptoeing to check how many people were left ahead. Gwen snorted. Doofus, like you actually work out. Of course I do. A great hero's schedule is jam-packed, beating up alien weirdos totally counts as exercise, Ben said, self-righteous. Grandpa Max, hair streaked grey and wearing his usual red floral shirt, smiled gently. "Ben, don't you already have this game? Why buy another copy?" Lucian looked at Ben with a questioning expression too. "Oh, come on. This is Sumo Slammers 2.1. You can change the main character's outfit color mid-fight. It's awesome," Ben said, eyes shining with longing. He wanted the cartridge badly enough to wait until nightfall. "All right, we'll wait here with you," Grandpa said, wiping sweat from his brow. Ben's face suddenly went pale. A sharp cramp gripped his stomach like someone twisting his gut. Then an overwhelming urge hit him like a wave. "Oh, damn it! Why now of all times?" Ben clutched his stomach and pinched his legs together. "Ben, are you all right?" Lucian noticed. Ha, it's just a little problem," Ben forced a smile, sweating. "I can handle it. I'll be fine." "Ben, you can't force it. That's bad for your health." "Let's go back and come another time," Grandpa said, worried. "No, I'm not going back," Ben insisted stubbornly, holding his stomach. "I can hold on. I have to get Sumo Slammers 2.1. Gurgle. A strange noise came from Ben's stomach. His face turned even paler. "You!" Gwen recoiled. "Go back, doofus. I don't want to see you poop your pants in public. That would be disgusting." "I won't," Ben protested. "Here's the deal. We'll stay in line and buy the cartridge for you. Then you can go back to the rust bucket and take care of it," Lucian suggested. He didn't want to imagine Ben having an accident either. Ben grabbed that lifeline and nodded frantically. "Awesome! I knew my cuz was the best. You guys stay here in line, I'll be right back." Ben clutched his stomach, legs pinched together, and ran awkwardly toward the rust bucket. The group exchanged looks and laughed, then returned to their place in line. Lucian estimated they'd still need at least an hour to get Sumo Slammers 2.1. About 10 minutes later, a commotion erupted at the ticket window. The crowd let out piercing screams and scattered in every direction like a boiling pot exploding. "Run! There's a monster! Help! Somebody save us! Damn, I haven't even bought the game yet! Screw the cartridge! You need to live to play it! If you won't run, I will!" Boom! The crowd ahead scattered like ants doused with water, panic-stricken and fleeing in all directions. For a moment, the air was filled with the sound of trampling feet, shrieks, and angry curses, leaving those behind staring in stunned silence. "What's going on?" Gwen poked her head out, trying to see what was happening ahead. "I think I just heard someone mention monsters. Could it be aliens causing trouble again?" Grandpa Max's expression turned grave. If that were the case, he'd have to go back to the rust bucket to grab his weapons. Ever since the last battle with Vilgax, Grandpa Max had retrieved some plumber gear from Mount Rushmore and stored it in the rust bucket both as a precaution against Vilgax's return and to deal with other alien threats. Thinking about it, Grandpa Max felt puzzled. He couldn't understand why this summer had been filled with so many alien encounters, almost as many as during his old plumber days. Strange things happen every year, but this year was on another level. Lucian's sharp eyesight quickly picked out what was going on up front. With perfect vision since childhood, he easily saw through the thick crowd. A towering figure stood near the sales kiosk. Blood-red skin. 4 arms. 4 eyes. Muscles bulging across its massive frame, its sheer power was enough to make anyone tremble. It was 4 arms. With a furious roar, he lifted the flimsy kiosk and gave it a violent shake, sending the staff member inside flying. Dozens of valuable game cartridges scattered through the air, tumbling across the street. "Oh my God, has that doofus completely lost his mind?" Gwen's eyes widened in disbelief. In broad daylight, using his transformation powers just to snatch a game cartridge? Grandpa Max frowned. That doesn't make sense. Ben loves gaming, but he wouldn't go that far. Beep boop. From down the street, a convoy of police cars came rushing in, red and blue lights flashing atop their roofs, sirens wailing through the city. If you'd like to support my work and unlock advanced chapters, you can follow me on Patreon. Up to 50 chapters ahead for now. Patreon.com/pinksnake. Chapter 142, Chapter 142, San Francisco Police Captain. Over a dozen police cars screeched to a halt along the street, kicking up thick clouds of dust as their engines roared to a stop. The atmosphere was charged with tension. A large group of heavily armed officers jumped out of the vehicles in unison. Clad in blue uniforms and armed with black rifles, they quickly surrounded the rampaging four arms. These were San Francisco's elite law enforcement officers, stronger and better equipped than most city forces, true veterans of the field. Their captain, a middle-aged man with blonde hair and green eyes, bore faint wrinkles on his face, but his gaze was sharp and merciless as it locked onto the alien creature in the distance. All units, fire at will. The captain raised his hand and gave a sharp wave, ordering the attack without a hint of hesitation. To him, whether it was a gunman or an alien monster, anything posing a serious threat to civilians had to be eliminated. Yes, sir, the officers responded in unison, raising their rifles and taking aim at four arms. Wait! Gwen shouted, but she was a moment too late. Rat-a-tat-tat. A barrage of bullets exploded like a violent storm, forming a deadly steel tempest that engulfed four arms completely. Yet the bullets did nothing. They bounced off his crimson skin without leaving a mark, falling uselessly to the pavement with metallic clinks. It was as if they'd struck a wall of iron. What? That's impossible. The captain's eyes widened in disbelief. Too strong, he was actually immune to bullets. What kind of physical power was that? He had faced aliens before, but never one as overwhelmingly powerful as this. Four arms roared, enduring the hail of bullets without a scratch. With immense strength, he lifted the entire kiosk and hurled it with terrifying force toward the police. Move, the captain shouted, twisting his body to dodge aside. Dozens of officers dropped their rifles and scrambled for cover, barely escaping as the massive metal structure hurtled toward them. Boom! The kiosk slammed into the street with a deafening crash, sending out a shockwave that split the ground into spider-web-like cracks. Upon impact, it shattered apart, scattering jagged shards of metal through the air straight toward Gwen. Get out of the way, Gwen! Grandpa Max shouted, throwing himself forward with all his strength, his old body straining to protect her. But he was too late. No matter how fast he moved, he couldn't beat the flying shards. Just as one razor-sharp piece was about to slash across Gwen's neck, a green hand shot out and caught it effortlessly. "'Cuz." Gwen's voice trembled as she looked up, stunned. The figure was tall and lean, his skin a deep green that gave off a faint swampy odor. But to Gwen, that back seemed impossibly tall and heroic because he had just saved her. Swamp fire ignited flames from his hand, enveloping the metal shard. It melted into a puddle of molten iron, which he flicked aside casually. The molten drops sizzled as they hit the ground. "Gwen, are you okay?" Grandpa Max rushed over, his face filled with worry as he carefully checked her condition. "Grandpa, I'm fine." "Thankfully, Lucian blocked the metal shard for me," Gwen said softly. "This place is dangerous." "Grandpa, take Gwen and get her out of here," Swampfire said, turning toward him. "All right. Be careful, Lucian." With that, Grandpa Max guided Gwen toward the entrance of a nearby shop, watching anxiously from a distance. "That doofus, what got into him? I almost died back there," Gwen fumed, glaring at the still raging four arms. "I'm sure he has a good explanation," Grandpa Max said grimly, though his dark expression betrayed his anger. The street was in chaos. Countless security officers had been beaten down by four arms, lying sprawled across the ground, groaning in pain. The massive alien grabbed the bruised and bloodied security captain by the collar. His eyes gleamed with mockery as he burst into wild laughter. Is this San Francisco's security force? Pathetic. You're all useless. The captain gritted his teeth, blood trickling from his lips. Though fury burned in his eyes, he didn't dare speak. Seeing that look of helpless pain only made Four Arms laugh harder. The sight filled him with cruel satisfaction. This was what he wanted to see: fear and despair. Otherwise, he would have killed these weaklings already. Not one of them could take a single punch from him. What do you want? The captain roared hoarsely, a deep sense of powerlessness rising inside him. Enough. Four Arms shrugged, his tone mocking. Clenching his massive fist, he sneered, let me send you to the afterlife. Alien hacker mission triggered. Rescue the San Francisco security captain. Mission reward, random enhancement effect. Whoosh. Four Arms' blood-red fist, like a massive hammer, came crashing toward the captain's chest. At the last instant, a deep green figure appeared beside him, gripping Four Arms' wrist with unyielding strength. Four Arms froze, then snarled, who the hell are you, ruining my fun? You're old man. Swamp Fire threw a solid punch straight into his opponent's face, sending him flying through the air and crashing into a convenience store with a thunderous impact. Caught off guard, Four Arms couldn't withstand the blow. Swamp Fire's power was no joke. He was strong enough to topple a tower if he wanted to. The captain lay on the ground, eyes wide in disbelief as he stared at the green figure. You're an alien too. Why are there so many aliens all of a sudden? Swamp Fire didn't answer. He waved a hand dismissively, his tone cold. If you don't want to die, then leave now. The captain clenched his fists and, with great effort, pushed himself up. Staggering on unsteady legs, he moved toward his wounded team members, checking their condition while urgently calling for backup. He could only hope reinforcements would arrive soon to help them deal with these alien monsters. Swamp Fire paid him no mind. His attention was locked on the enemy before him because the counterattack was about to begin. Mission complete, Captain rescued. Swamp Fire's physical flexibility plus 10%, flame power plus 5%. A mechanical chime echoed in Lucian's mind. Crash! Four Arms tore through the debris, shaking glass shards off his body. With a powerful kick, he launched himself out of the convenience store, landing in front of Swamp Fire. Rage burned in his eyes. He wanted nothing more than to rip his opponent to shreds. You're Kevin Levin. Swamp Fire raised his palm, aiming it at the furious Four Arms. A faint, icy gleam flickered in Four Arms' eyes before disappearing. Then his gaze shifted toward Swamp Fire's chest. I see. Four Arms smirked coldly. He knew who this was. The last time they met, the guy had appeared in a different form. No wonder he hadn't recognized him right away. When Swamp Fire didn't respond, he simply raised his arm and unleashed a torrent of blazing flames. They roared forward like a dragon of fire, surging straight toward Four Arms. If you'd like to support my work and unlock advanced chapters, you can follow me on Patreon. Up to 50 chapters ahead for now. Patreon.com/pinksnake. Chapter 143, Chapter 143, Lieutenant Steele. Four Arms grabbed a nearby car to block the raging flames, but it quickly melted into molten iron, dripping onto the ground. Feeling the scorching heat, Four Arms roared in fury. He yanked a utility pole from the sidewalk and swung it wildly, channeling his brute strength as he brought it crashing down. Swamp Fire dodged to the side, forming a blazing fireball in his hand that glowed with searing light before hurling it straight at his opponent. Useless. You're no match for me. Four Arms smashed the fireball apart with a swing of his fist. It burst into strands of heat that vanished into the air. Then, with a mighty stomp, he shattered the ground beneath his feet, releasing a violent shockwave as he charged forward at blistering speed. Both his strength and speed were extraordinary, formidable even by the standards of the vast universe. Seeing no way to evade, Swamp Fire clenched his fist, crimson flames igniting across his arm as he boosted his power and charged head-on. Boom! Swamp Fire's flaming fist collided with Forearm's iron punch, exploding with terrifying force. The impact sent cars tumbling, debris flying in every direction, leaving a vacuum-like zone at the center of the blast. Not bad, but compared to me, you're still far too weak. Forearms bellowed, unleashing raw power as he sent Swamp Fire flying backward. As he fell, Swamp Fire quickly flicked out his hand, scattering several small seeds around Forearms. Rise! The instant he spoke, thick vines burst from the cracked ground, tearing through the pavement like living dragons. They whipped wildly, blocking out the sunlight. Under Swamp Fire's control, the vines twisted and intertwined into a massive green web that swiftly ensnared the stunned Forearms. He tried to break free, but a vine lashed him to the ground. More followed, swarming and binding him tightly in their coils. Whoa, that's awesome! What a cool move! Gwen shouted, her wide eyes reflecting the shimmer of green vines. That's the ability of a Methanosian, Grandpa explained with a grin. They can control plants to fight alongside them. Buzz! A black Hummer roared in from the distance and screeched to a halt near the battlefield. A blond man with a buzz cut stepped out, dressed in tactical black combat gear. A jagged scar ran across his face from his forehead, across his nose, down to his right cheek, giving him a harsh, intimidating look. At the same time, several black-clad soldiers climbed out of the vehicle, each wielding a heavy laser cannon. Without hesitation, they took aim at both Swamp Fire and Forearms. Reinforcements from headquarters. The wounded security captain, supported by his men, coughed as he limped forward and looked at the blond man. The man nodded, pulling out an identification badge and holding it up. Lieutenant Steele, Alien Containment Unit. We specialize in neutralizing extraterrestrial threats. This area is now under our control. Then we... The captain hesitated, his words trailing off. Glancing at the battered and injured officers, Lieutenant Steele's expression remained flat, devoid of emotion. You can leave. Don't slow us down. The captain gave a bitter chuckle. Lieutenant Steele was certainly direct, but he wasn't wrong. Staying here would only get in the way. With a weary sigh, the captain gathered his remaining men and led them away, frustration and helplessness etched on their faces as they left the scene. Lieutenant Steele turned sharply and shouted, "Prepare the laser cannon. Wipe out every last one of those damn alien monsters." "Yes, sir." Two squad members moved into position, one operating the cannon while the other carried its power supply. They took aim at Swamp Fire and Forearms ahead. Golden energy particles rapidly gathered at the cannon's muzzle before erupting into a blazing beam of light that roared forward with searing heat. Swamp Fire, anticipating the attack, leapt clear of the blast radius and landed on the balcony of a nearby apartment building. Forearms, still bound by vines, wasn't so lucky. The massive beam engulfed him completely. Boom! The golden laser struck with terrifying force, blowing Forearms backward and shredding the vines that restrained him. They burned to ash midair, scattering in the wind. Damn it! You're all dead! Forearms clutched his chest, half kneeling on the cracked pavement. The road for 50 meters ahead had been carved into deep trenches, smoke curling upward from the molten edges. Even a thick-skinned Tetrahemand couldn't take a direct hit like that without serious damage. He turned to glare up at Swamp Fire on the balcony, eyes blazing with hatred. "We'll see about this next time. The next time we meet it'll be your end." Kicking off the ground, Forearms launched himself skyward and bolted into the distance with incredible speed. Lieutenant Steele immediately ordered another volley, but the target's agility was too great. The laser cannon blasts struck several buildings instead, reducing them to rubble before the firing stopped. Watching as Forearms vanished from sight, Swamp Fire jumped down from the balcony, ready to give chase and confirm his suspicion. He wasn't sure if that had really been Kevin. Since their battle in New York, he hadn't seen him, and back then, Kevin had been possessed by Ghost Freak. But judging from what he'd seen just now, Four Arms hadn't shown any signs of possession. Had Ghost Freak released Kevin? No, impossible. With Ghost Freak's personality, there was no way he'd willingly let go of such a powerful host body. The more Swamp Fire thought about it, the stranger it seemed. He took a step forward, preparing to pursue Four Arms. Beep beep. The Omnitrix on his chest suddenly began flashing. Sigh, I knew it, Swamp Fire muttered. He dodged several stray laser shots and darted into a shadowed alleyway. Then, moving at full speed, he leapt forward several times before vanishing completely. By the time the special forces rushed in, the alley was empty, only scattered trash remained. Report. The target has escaped the area, one soldier called out. Lieutenant Steele gave a curt nod. His face remained expressionless, but a cold glint flickered in his eyes. Elsewhere, after escaping the encirclement, Swamp Fire reverted to his normal form. He returned to the rust bucket with Grandpa Max and Gwen. Still fuming, Gwen slammed the door open and stormed inside, every heavy step making the floor creak beneath her. Four Arms hadn't just wrecked the sales site, he'd nearly killed her. There was no way she was letting that slide. She was going to teach that doofus a lesson before he went completely off the rails. But when Gwen entered the rust bucket, what she saw nearly made her explode. At some point, Ben had returned and was sitting calmly on his stool, headphones on, controller in hand, completely absorbed in his video game. Stop right there, Ben Tennyson. Have you lost your mind today? Abusing your watch to steal a game cartridge and injuring so many people? Your brain must be fried. Gwen stormed forward and yanked the headphones off his head. I'm sure he has a perfectly reasonable explanation, Grandpa said with a good-natured smile. Chapter 144, Chapter 144, Return to the Scene. I have no idea what you're talking about. Ben, still gripping his controller, kept playing his game as if nothing had happened. Oh, sure. Just like you didn't leave empty soda bottles in the fridge, didn't clog the toilet, and definitely didn't sneak out at midnight to steal my secret stash of chocolate bars. You never do anything wrong, right? Gwen's chest heaved as all her pent-up frustration came pouring out at once. Game over. Crimson letters flashed across the screen, declaring his defeat. What are you even talking about, Miss Know-It-All? Ben slammed the controller down, clearly irritated. I went to the bathroom and came straight back. I didn't go anywhere else. Ben, didn't you say you were coming back to find us? Lucian asked, frowning slightly. Well, that was the plan, Ben said, scratching his head with a guilty look. But on my way back, I found a game cartridge lying on the ground. When I saw it was Sumo Slammers 2.1, I couldn't wait to try it out. Then, I kind of forgot to come back for you guys. Gwen clearly wasn't buying it. She leaned forward, narrowing her eyes suspiciously at her clueless cousin. Don't try to lie your way out of this. Other than Lucian, you're the only one around who can turn into Four Arms, and you just happen to be obsessed with game cartridges. No matter how you look at it, you're the biggest suspect. Gwen's calm deduction made her look like a modern-day Sherlock Holmes. What Four Arms? I have no idea what you're talking about. Ben looked completely confused. Hey, nerd, stop being so paranoid, okay? As this century's greatest hero, what's wrong with relaxing and playing games once in a while? Even if you're jealous that I've got the Omnitrix, you don't have to make up some lame story to frame me. Jealous? You doofus, I'm trying to help you. Gwen snapped through gritted teeth. Lieutenant Steele's already targeting Four Arms. If you don't get your act together, next time you might end up roasted like an alien barbecue. Gwen's right. Grandpa Max stepped in, his expression stern. Ben, you really went too far today. Not only did you injure San Francisco law enforcement, but you also fought your cousin. I think it's time we cut down your game time. Ben blinked in disbelief, completely lost. Injured law enforcement? Fought his cousin? What was going on? All he'd done was play a game, and now he was being accused of all this? Just then, the screen at the front of the rust bucket lit up. Breaking news, 30 minutes ago, a suspected alien creature appeared on 24th Street in San Francisco. It caused major chaos at a game sales booth, injuring multiple security officers in the process. Its behavior was described as extremely violent. On screen, a massive forearms lifted a kiosk over his head, swinging it wildly before hurling it aside. He then charged forward, battling waves of blue uniformed guards. In the corner, a young female reporter held a microphone, explaining the events with a professional smile. "Oh my God, no way," Ben muttered, frozen in place, staring at the broadcast in disbelief. The footage shifted again, showing the same forearms clashing with swamp fire, followed by the arrival of Lieutenant Steele. "Got nothing to say now, hey?" Gwen crossed her arms, shooting Ben a sharp look. "That's not me." Ben shot back immediately, both furious and stunned. The creature on the screen looked exactly like Four-Arms. Was it an enemy? A copy? What was its goal? "So what, it's another alien monster," Gwen said sarcastically, half mocking but half giving him an excuse. "It's not impossible," Ben said with a shrug. "Remember Tetrax? He and Diamond Head are the same species. The aliens in the Omnitrix all exist out there somewhere." That does make sense," Grandpa nodded thoughtfully, then added, "but I don't think it's that simple. Something about this feels off." Watching the destructive forearms on the screen, Ben clenched his fists, anger flashing in his eyes. "No one gets to ruin my alien's reputation except me." With that, he threw open the rust bucket's door and sprinted toward the scene, determined to hunt down the imposter and clear his name. San Francisco, 24th Street. The ground was a wreck, cracked, scorched, and riddled with bullet holes. Several nearby houses had been obliterated by some overwhelming force, now lying in heaps of rubble, silent and lifeless. The recent attack had terrified the locals. People were frantically packing their belongings, stuffing them into car trunks in a panic, desperate to flee before the monsters returned. Dozens of security officers had already arrived, marking off the area and gathering evidence, searching for any clues that could reveal where the aliens had come from. Ben stood amid the devastation, crouching to pick up a broken piece of brick. His brow furrowed tightly. "This doesn't look good," he muttered, an uneasy feeling tightening his chest. Lucian and the others came up behind him. Gwen stepped forward, glancing at Ben, who was lost in thought. "You know, criminals usually come back to the scene to admire their handiwork. I already said it wasn't me." Ben tossed the brick aside and scanned the area for any other clues. "Ben, what's your plan?" Grandpa Max asked. "No clue. I'll figure it out as I go," Ben replied without looking back, eyes still darting across the ruined street. Grandpa Max sighed quietly, then turned to Lucian. "Lucian, you fought that Four-Arms. Did you notice anything unusual?" Lucian paused, then shook his head. "Not really. I think it might have been Kevin, but last time we saw him, his body was possessed by Ghost Freak. If it really was him, the Four-Arms shouldn't have looked so normal. People possessed by Ghost Freak usually had purple eyes, with black cracks spreading from the corners, an eerie, unmistakable sight. But the Four-Arms that Swamp Fire had fought showed none of that. He'd looked completely normal and lacked that dark, sinister aura Ghost Freak always gave off. Then this might be even more complicated than we thought." Grandpa Max murmured, rubbing his chin as he thought. Ben, meanwhile, paced slowly over the broken road, eyes sharp, determined to find whoever was behind this. Clang! A dull metallic sound echoed from a nearby alley. Ben's head snapped toward the noise, his eyes widening. In the shadowy alleyway, the towering, beast-like figure of 4 arms stood in plain sight. At his feet was an overturned trash can, the source of the sound. "There he is!" Ben shouted, immediately sprinting toward the alley. 4 arms turned sharply and bolted in the opposite direction, moving with astonishing speed. Hearing Ben's shout, the others rushed after him, charging into the alley all at once. But when they caught up, only Ben's back was visible. He lifted his Omnitrix replica and slammed it down with force. Thud! A flash of emerald light enveloped him for an instant before fading away. XLR8 lowered his visor and turned his head slightly. "I'll go chase down that loser. You guys catch up." Before anyone could respond, his feet slid against the ground like oiled steel. In the next second, he was gone, a streak of blue lightning cutting through the city as he raced into pursuit. If you'd like to support my work and unlock advanced chapters, you can follow me on Patreon. Up to 50 chapters ahead for now. Patreon.com/pinksnake. Chapter 145, Chapter 145, Kevin's Return. "Wait, Ben!" Grandpa Max shouted. But XLR8 was already gone, leaving nothing but a swirling trail of dust hanging in the air. Gwen stopped, panting. "That doofus, why does he always have to bolt off like that?" "He's too desperate to prove himself," Lucian said, shaking his head. Then his eyes fell on the large footprints stamped into the pavement clearly left by 4 arms. "Come on! We're going after them!" A cold gleam flashed in Lucian's eyes. San Francisco Mint. Rows of massive machines roared non-stop, pressing silver coins that rattled along winding conveyor belts, reflecting a harsh white light. 2 security guards staggered backward in terror, eyes wide as they faced the creature before them. It looked like a raptor, its skin a mix of black and blue, a sleek X-shaped visor covering its face, and claws gleaming cold and black under the factory lights. What are you? Help! Somebody, please!" The 2 guards clung to each other, sobbing helplessly, praying for someone, anyone to save them. "Hat! No need to be so scared. It'll all be over soon." XLR8 extended his claws, ready to strike the terrified guards down. "Stop!" a clear, sharp voice rang out from behind. XLR8 turned his head, his expression cold and detached. The 2 guards seized the chance, scrambling to their feet and bolting for the exit, not daring to look back. "So it's you," XLR8 said with a low laugh. "I thought it was some other fool." Standing across from him were an angry Gwen, Lucian, and Grandpa Max. Unbelievable. One alien causing chaos was bad enough, and now another XLR8? "You doofus, let's see you talk your way out of this one." Gwen crossed her arms, glaring furiously at him. "Such a sharp tongue. Careful, or you'll scare off any chance of a husband," XLR8 mocked with a laugh. Just as Gwen was about to snap back, a familiar voice shouted from behind her. "Gwen! Don't interrupt, I'm trying to teach this." She froze mid-sentence, turning around in disbelief. Another XLR8 was standing there behind them. An Omnitrix gleamed clearly on his chest. "Ben!" Gwen gasped, eyes widening. Then she looked back at the XLR8 in front of them, her voice trembling. "Then who is he?" Only now did she notice the one who had attacked the guards had no Omnitrix emblem at all. His chest was completely blank. That XLR8 didn't answer. Instead, he reached out, scooping up a handful of coins and flicking his wrist sharply. Clang! Dozens of silver coins spun through the air like deadly crescent blades, whirring at incredible speed as they shot straight toward Gwen. Whoosh! In a blur of blue, the real XLR8 darted past, scooping Gwen out of harm's way and setting her safely beside Lucian just before the attack struck. "Cuz, keep an eye on the nerd for me." As soon as the words left his mouth, XLR8 pulled down his visor and shot forward, turning into a streak of blue lightning that tore across the floor toward his opponent. He was going to beat that impostor senseless, then drag him straight to prison himself. In an instant, the two XLR8s collided, their movements too fast for the eye to follow. Blue afterimages blurred together as powerful winds whipped through the mint, sending thousands of coins flying into the air like metallic snow. Out on the streets, pedestrians spotted the coins raining down and immediately went berserk. Like a mob of crazed scavengers, they lunged at the glimmering silver, shoving, yelling, even breaking into fights as they clawed at the scattered coins. Inside the mint, Gwen watched the two XLR8s clash in disbelief. I can't believe someone's actually pretending to be Ben, but then what about that forearms from earlier? Could he transform into multiple aliens, just like Lucian and Ben? Could it really be Kevin? If that's the case, where did Ghost Freak go? Grandpa Max muttered, glancing warily around. Maybe, at that very moment, Ghost Freak was hiding somewhere in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. Lucian stepped forward, ready to press the Omnitrix's calibration module. "Cuz, stay out of this. This is between me and him. This hero's gonna teach that loser a lesson personally." Ben's hoarse voice echoed from the center of the fight. Lucian hesitated for a second, then lowered his hand. He didn't transform. If Ben wanted to handle this himself, Lucian wouldn't interfere. He understood how he felt, someone running around pretending to be you, wrecking things and dragging your name through the mud. Anyone would be furious. You'd want to find that person and make them regret it. Lucian kept his eyes fixed on the battle. If anything went wrong, he'd step in immediately. At the same time, his peripheral vision stayed alert. Everything pointed to the imposter being Kevin. But Ghost Freak's absence was strange, too strange. Could Kevin have killed him? No. That didn't seem likely. Ghost Freak was slippery. If it couldn't win, it could always escape. Almost no one could stop it. Still, once they caught Kevin, they'd get their answers. Meanwhile, the two XLR8s continued clashing in bursts of lightning speed. "Who are you? Why are you pretending to be me?" XLR8 roared, his claws slicing through the air as he unleashed a furious barrage. "Me?" The imposter smirked coldly. "I'm you, Ben. You're Kevin." XLR8's eyes widened as he froze mid-attack. Kevin chuckled, his tone mocking. "Hat, not bad for a dimwit like you." In a flash, he reappeared, lounging casually on a chair with his legs crossed. "I thought Ghost Freak took over your body," XLR8 said through gritted teeth. "Guess that's not the case anymore." "Ghost Freak? You mean that pathetic shadow thought it could control me, Kevin Levin?" Kevin scoffed, eyes narrowing. "Hat, what a joke. Then what happened?" XLR8 demanded. "Why should I tell you, Ben Tennyson?" Kevin shrugged lazily. Then, smirking, he added, "But sure, why not? That thing's dead. I killed it. Now it's nothing but dust in the air." "What? That's impossible, you beat Ghost Freak." XLR8 clearly didn't believe him. "Believe it or don't, buddy," Kevin said, his voice turning dark as he rose to his feet. A suffocating killing intent filled the air. "Because soon, you'll end up just like it, dead by my hand. You're the one who trashed the Sumo Slammer's sales booth, aren't you?" Kevin grinned wickedly. "That's right. I'm gonna destroy your reputation and make sure you take the fall for me." He burst out laughing, the sound edged with madness. "So, you can switch between alien forms freely now, hey?" XLR8 asked, tightening his claws. Kevin nodded. "After absorbing your watch's energy, I can transform into any alien I want, just takes a little focus." He paused, eyes narrowing. "The only downside is, I can't stay human for long anymore. And that's your fault. You turned me into this freak. You're the one who tried to drain the Omnitrix, not me." XLR8 shot back. Don't care. Kevin's voice dropped, and before the words even faded, his body began to swell, muscles bulging, skin shifting red as he transformed at blinding speed into the hulking forearms. Come on, Ben. Let's finish this. Forearms slammed his fists together with a thunderous crack, then charged like a raging beast, barreling straight toward XLR8. If you'd like to support my work and unlock advanced chapters, you can follow me on Patreon. Up to 50 chapters ahead for now. Patreon.com/pinksnake. Chapter 146, Chapter 146, yeah, so what? Facing the raging forearms, XLR8 quickly improvised. He grabbed a handful of coins nearby and flung them straight at his opponent. Clatter! The gleaming coins spun at high speed, becoming razor-sharp as they tore through the air, carrying a terrifying kinetic force toward forearms. Ben Tennyson, you idiot! Copying my move? Ha ha ha! Forearms' expression twisted into madness, showing no fear of the incoming attack. He spread his blood-red arms wide and clapped them together with a thunderous boom, unleashing a violent shockwave. The deadly coins froze midair under the immense pressure, letting out faint metallic cries before losing all momentum and raining down with dull clinks. Oh, crap! XLR8's face fell. If he'd known his opponent was Kevin, he never would have chosen XLR8. He'd have gone with something brute force, like Forearms himself or even Diamond Head. As for the 4 new alien heroes, he was still too unfamiliar with them. They weren't nearly enough to take on Kevin. Forearms cracked his knuckles, glaring viciously as he advanced step by step. Ben Tennyson, it's time to end this. He stomped down, shattering the stone beneath his feet, and threw a massive punch at XLR8. In a flash, XLR8 dodged aside, reappearing behind him. Tap tap tap. He leapt up and unleashed a flurry of rapid kicks against Forearms' broad back, the strikes landing with heavy, muffled thuds. Ben Tennyson, are you tickling me? Forearms sneered, then spun around and smacked XLR8 away with a single swing. Bang! XLR8's slender body shot through the air like a kite with its string cut, crashing hard into the bridge and snapping its supports. Shimmering coins scattered everywhere, clinking across the cold ground. Damn it! XLR8 gritted his teeth, forcing himself up through the pain. Just as he prepared to counterattack, the omnitrix on his chest began to blink. A burst of red light engulfed him and he reverted to Ben. Ugh, this stupid watch! Where did you even come from? Ben groaned, staring at his hands in frustration. Ha ha ha! Luck's on my side. You're finished, loser! Forearms' face contorted with fury as he charged forward like a wild beast, ready to tear Ben apart. I'm so screwed. Ben's face went pale as he turned and bolted in the opposite direction. But there was no escaping Forearms' speed. In just a few strides, he was upon him. Just as Forearms' massive claws were about to grab Ben, a chilling gust erupted, slamming straight into his face. What the? Forearms raised an arm to block the strange blast. Crack! Glittering ice spread rapidly across his body, wrapping around him like a living curse. Within seconds, Forearms was encased in solid ice, frozen into a massive sculpture that gleamed under the light. Ben turned toward the source, his eyes lighting up with relief. "'Cause you're my absolute hero," he couldn't help but cheer. At some point, the big chill had already risen into the air. Each flap of its blue wings swept out a chill, like an ethereal being from a frozen realm. Such a beautiful alien hero! Gwen murmured, gazing up at the big chill in awe. Though this wasn't her first encounter with the big chill, she still couldn't contain her excitement. The big chill flapped its wings, scooping up the jubilant Ben and carrying him to Grandpa Max's side. "Gwen, you possess water magic. Take care of Grandpa and Ben. I'll handle Kevin," Big Chill said in a hoarse voice, its golden eyes glinting faintly. "I can help Lucian." Gwen blurted out, her expression anxious. No, your magic won't harm Kevin. Big Chill shook its head, then turned and departed. Grandpa Max looked at his dejected granddaughter and comforted her. Gwen, don't be discouraged. Your cousin didn't let you join the fight because he was afraid you'd get hurt. You must understand Lucian's good intentions. At these words, the gloom in Gwen's eyes instantly brightened. So that's why. Her cuz was afraid Kevin would hurt her, so he wouldn't let her help. How thoughtful. Seeing Gwen's increasingly dreamy expression, Grandpa Max began to regret his earlier words. He cleared his throat softly, then led Ben and Gwen to hide in a corner of the mint, watching the battle between the Big Chill and the Four Arms with bated breath. By now, the Four Arms had already broken free from the ice's grip, becoming utterly frenzied as it savagely attacked the Big Chill. Ben Tennyson's cousin, you're going to interfere too. Four Arms swung his fists, creating powerful gusts of wind. Yes. So what? The Big Chill replied indifferently, effortlessly evading the terrifying blows. Its sky-blue wings soared through the air, periodically expelling icy breath that frustrated Four Arms into near madness. Though the Four Arms possessed astonishing leaping power, whenever he neared the Big Chill, the latter would instantly transform into a phantom form. This not only evaded the brute's fists but also allowed the Big Chill to form a layer of frost, drastically slowing the Four Arms' speed. Oh man, cuz is totally awesome. Ben jumped up excitedly. Go beat the crap out of that loser Kevin. Teach him a lesson so he knows messing with Ben Tennyson isn't smart. Gwen looked embarrassed. If it weren't for cuz stepping in, you'd be in real trouble, you doofus. Hey, I remember an old saying, riding someone else's strength. That fits Ben's situation perfectly right now, Grandpa Max chuckled. The spacious mint was already a complete mess. The floor was covered in fine cracks, littered with countless silver coins, some shattered into fragments, others broken and incomplete, and still others frozen solid, reflecting a faint, icy glint. Lucian, is it? The Four Arms, covered in wounds, his eyes nearly spitting flames, roared furiously, don't think that just because you beat me last time, you can do it again. If that old ghost hadn't controlled my body, I would have killed you then and there. He still vividly remembered the scene in New York's plaza, his body being mercilessly pounded by the humongousaur. Though possessed by Ghost Freak, he'd witnessed every blow powerless to regain control, forced to endure each strike landing on his own body. The blows landed on Kevin's body, but the pain was in Kevin's heart. Ghost Freak, that old bastard, had suffered almost no damage. Right. Ghost Freak. He'd absorbed the energy from Ben's watch, granting him the ability to transform into other aliens. Why not become Ghost Freak? This thought gradually calmed the Four Arms. Earlier, Lucian provocation had enraged him so much he'd forgotten to shift into another alien form. His hatred for him was no less intense than his hatred for Ben. After barely fending off the Big Chill's icy spear, the Four Arms clenched his fists as his head transformed rapidly. Shifting between Diamond Head, Stink Fly, and Upgrade, his expression contorted in agony as if a million ants were gnawing at him. Clang! Big Chill's gaze sharpened as it expelled bone-chilling cold breath from its mouth, enveloping Kevin below. Yet the next instant, this surging attack missed its mark. Four Arms' massive form had vanished, replaced by a sinister white shadow. Lucian, you're in for a world of trouble. The Ghost Freak voice was hoarse, its single purple eye glaring, its skin a terrifying pallor. Chapter 147, Chapter 147, Trapped in Another Dimension. Oh no, Kevin turned into Ghost Freak. This is bad, Grandpa Max muttered, frowning deeply. Ectonurites were notoriously troublesome. They could turn invisible and even possess others, a terrifying ability that made them nearly impossible for most aliens to defeat. Only strong sunlight could truly destroy them. Relax, cuz is awesome. He's totally gonna teach that weirdo Kevin a lesson. Ben said confidently, showing no sign of worry. He had complete faith in Lucian's strength. Gwen, however, looked anxious. Her eyes stayed fixed on the center of the battlefield. "'Cause, you have to win." At that moment, Big Chill folded his wings and descended, landing opposite Ghost Freak. The icy blue wings draped around him like a noble cloak. His calm, steady gaze met his opponent's as he spoke in a low, raspy voice. "You think turning into Ghost Freak will be enough to beat me? Hey, how would I know unless I try?" Ghost Freak sneered, his form melting into the darkness until he vanished completely. "Invisible again? That same trick." But Big Chill wasn't fazed. Ghost Freak's invisibility might terrify others, but not him. Against Big Chill, it was useless. Whoosh! A chilling, sinister wind swept in from behind like a venomous serpent, sharp and deadly. The instant it struck, Big Chill didn't hesitate. He shifted into his phantom form. A pale, ghostly hand pierced straight through the intangible shadow. "What? How is this possible? Even as Ghost Freak, I can't hurt you." Ghost Freak shouted, eyes wide with disbelief. "Kevin, you're too naive." Big Chill's phantom turned slowly, its voice calm and steady. "I exist in another dimension. You really think your tricks can touch me?" Ghost Freak snarled and slashed wildly, trying to disrupt the space around Big Chill, but it was completely futile. "Awesome! Lucian is so strong. I knew he wouldn't lose to Kevin." Gwen's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Relax, nerd. When have my predictions ever been wrong?" Ben said with a grin, waving his hand casually, though inside, he was brimming with pride. "No. Kevin's not done yet," Grandpa Max said, eyes narrowing. "Remember, he can still transform into other aliens." At that, Ben and Gwen quickly turned serious, watching the battle unfold with tense focus. As Ghost Freak attacked the phantom form, Big Chill unleashed his freezing power, encasing the enemy in layers of ice. With a sharp crackling sound, Ghost Freak was sealed inside a towering sculpture of crystal-clear frost that glittered in the light. Big Chill flapped his wings, hovering in midair as he raised his palm, ready to deliver the finishing blow. But Ghost Freak suddenly phased through the ice, slipping out effortlessly before everyone's eyes. "I'm not afraid of the cold." "That trick won't work on me," Ghost Freak taunted. "I almost forgot you're not a living being at all, but a ghost." Big Chill's voice stayed calm, though his expression turned serious. "But even if I can't hurt you, you can't hurt me either. So what's the point?" "You're right, Lucian," Ghost Freak grinned wickedly. "So? I'll just turn into something else." As soon as he spoke, his head twisted grotesquely, and his body began to swell and distort. In a blur, his form shifted first into Ripya's, then Wild Mutt, then Four Arms, then Grey Matter, and finally into Diamond Head. The transformation was agonizing. Kevin's face contorted into a hideous grimace, but in just a few seconds, the change was complete. Diamond Head stood tall and imposing, his body gleaming with vibrant emerald crystals. His presence radiated sheer power and dominance. "Lucian, you'd better bow down and apologize to me now while you still can. Otherwise, it'll be too late." Diamond Head's lips curled into a sinister smile as he clenched his fists. "Wow, you're really confident. Don't ask for a timeout when we start fighting." Big Chill chuckled. "Then let's see." Diamond Head raised his arm, transforming it into a dense cluster of sharp spikes that erupted outward in a frenzied barrage. The razor-sharp crystal spikes shot forth like a violent storm. One direct hit could easily turn someone into a honeycomb of holes. Big Chill shifted into a phantom form, effortlessly dodging the oncoming spikes. Clang! 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 Diamond Head's barrage pierced through the blue silhouette, slamming violently into the floor and scattering bright sparks. The once solid stone slabs instantly shattered like fragile tofu under Diamond Head's terrifying assault, leaving the ground torn and broken, with cracked bricks and exposed earth everywhere. "Huff! Big Chill exhaled a burst of frigid air, condensing it into a razor-sharp ice spear before thrusting it forward. The spear whirled with explosive kinetic force as it shot toward Kevin. Ha 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 ha. Come on. I'm not afraid of you. Diamond Head's eyes burned with madness as his arms transformed into crystalline blades. Charging forward like a wild beast, he sprang into the air, crossing his blades before slashing down hard at the oncoming spear. Snap! Under the violent collision, the blue ice spear shattered, and Diamond Head's blades cracked apart. Ah! Diamond Head screamed, staggering backward from the recoil. Big Chill seized the opening, flickering through the air and appearing before Diamond Head in an instant. You! Diamond Head's eyes widened, a chill of dread running through him. Your Diamond Head is too weak. Big Chill clenched his claws, coating them in jagged ice spikes like a spiked gauntlet, then unleashed a powerful punch. Boom! The ice-coated fist smashed into Diamond Head's face with explosive force, sending a frigid shockwave through the air that hurled him backward. After flying dozens of meters, Diamond Head crashed into a wall, fracturing it into spiderweb cracks before collapsing to the ground in a heap. His left cheek, split by Big Chill's punch, began slowly repairing itself. Damn it! How could I lose to Ben and his crew? Diamond Head struggled to his feet, hatred and frustration burning in his eyes. Moo! Suddenly, a massive ice bowl charged forward, its muscular limbs thundering across the ground. Atop its head, a pair of long, curved horns glinted with a deadly frost, slicing through the air with terrifying force. Cold energy solidified into form Big Chill's ultimate move. Not only could this ability give shape to cold energy, turning it into creatures and plants, but it could also mimic biological traits, unleashing devastating attacks like the Wild Bull Charge. Facing the unstoppable force of the charging ice bowl, Diamond Head dared not meet it head-on. He thrust out his palm and slammed it into the ground. Instantly, a massive crystal mountain erupted upward, standing tall between him and the bull. Boom! The ice bowl's immense power crashed into the crystal barrier, its horns tearing through everything in its path. Shards of blue glass exploded into the air, glittering as they rained down. The ice bowl began to crumble rapidly, and by the time the crystal mountain collapsed, the creature had exhausted its energy, falling apart into lifeless fragments across the battlefield. Big Chill phased through the wreckage like a ghostly shadow, but Kevin was nowhere to be seen. Could he have turned into Ghost Freak, he thought, but quickly shook his head. That didn't seem likely. His gaze drifted upward to a shattered skylight, where rays of sunlight streamed down and glimmered across his face. Looks like he turned into Stinkfly and escaped. Big Chill spread his wings to take flight, but suddenly, the Omnitrix on his chest flashed. In the next moment, he reverted to Lucian's form. All right, I knew it would be like this. Lucian sighed, shaking his head. Still, the transformation time was about up anyway, roughly 15 minutes. Soon after, everyone regrouped at the Rust Bucket to discuss their next move. If you'd like to support my work and unlock advanced chapters, you can follow me on Patreon. Up to 50 chapters ahead for now. patreon.com/pinksnake. Chapter 148, Chapter 148, Story Time. Back in the Rust Bucket, Ben sat sulking, lips pursed as if weighed down by frustration. Ben, still thinking about Kevin? Lucian asked with a smile. Yeah. That jerk impersonated me, went around wrecking things, and ruined my alien hero reputation. Ben clenched his fists, seething with anger, itching to drag Kevin out again for another 300 rounds of payback. Grandpa Max pulled a bowl of raw marinated mantis shrimp from the fridge and began eating enthusiastically. This is fantastic. Truly a rare delicacy, he muttered between bites. Grandpa. Ben's mood worsened instantly. He was still stewing over Kevin, and here Grandpa was, cheerfully enjoying his nutritious meal. Well, Grandpa Max said after swallowing another bite, what I mean is, that kid Kevin really needs to see a psychiatrist." He followed the statement with another mouthful of shrimp. "Hey!" Lucian's eyes narrowed as he walked over, studying the bowl in Grandpa's hands. The large porcelain bowl was filled with spicy sauces and seasonings, mixed with marinated mantis shrimp, cold noodles, and cucumber slices. Grandpa Max's mouth gleamed with oil as he ate, completely immersed in his feast. "This dish, why does it look so familiar?" "Grandpa, did you learn this recipe from a book?" Lucian asked casually, testing the waters. Grandpa Max slurped down some enoki mushrooms and replied, "Of course not. You can't learn a treasure like this from a book. I learned it from a monk in a province in China." He paused, then continued, "It's called raw pickled. That monk said he learned it from someone else before passing it on to me. I heard it originated in the Chaoshan region of southern China." "I see." Lucian nodded slowly. "No wonder it looked familiar, it had roots in China." "Grandpa, is that the same monk who taught you the Senju Yenpian cold remedy?" Gwen asked curiously. At the mention of that remedy, Ben shuddered. The last time he'd caught a cold, Grandpa had made him drink it and it was absolutely disgusting. That was also the time Heat Blast turned into Ice Blast and ended up battling the bug monster. "Hee, that's him," Grandpa Max said with a chuckle. "The guy's amazing, taught me all kinds of things. Not just cooking and medicine, he even knew martial arts. Come to think of it, it's quite an unforgettable story. Tell us." Gwen's eyes lit up as she leaned closer, eager for the tale. Lucian was curious too. He wanted to know what kind of man could impress Grandpa Max the legendary plumber so much. The moment she heard there was a story, Ben forgot all her worries. She grabbed a small stool and plopped down in front of Grandpa, eyes shining. "Grandpa, tell us. I bet this story's gonna be awesome." All right, Grandpa Max said kindly, smiling with warmth and affection. Lucian's lips curved slightly. That was Grandpa Max for you, gentle, patient, and endlessly caring toward his family. But when it came to ruthless alien criminals, it was a different story. He'd grab his high-tech weapons and dive headfirst into battle, leaving even the first-generation Vilgax dumbfounded. No alien would ever imagine that the legendary plumber whose very name struck fear across the galaxy could show such tenderness and heart. Yet it was precisely that mix of compassion and strength that earned Grandpa Max the respect of countless plumbers. A man made only of steel and cold resolve could never truly inspire others. "All right, kids, Grandpa Max is starting the story." Grandpa Max cleared his throat twice, tilting his head back as a distant, nostalgic look filled his eyes. The three of them sat upright, side by side, listening intently. It was a winter more than 30 years ago. That day, Grandpa Max received a mission from Plumber headquarters to travel to Shenangjia in China and investigate reports of wild men sightings. Originally, the investigation was supposed to be handled by the local plumbers in China. However, the moment they entered Shenangjia, all contact with headquarters was lost. Suspecting alien interference, the plumber leadership immediately ordered the young and promising Max to go as backup to investigate the so-called Shenangjia wild men and rescue the missing team. Back then, Grandpa Max was still young, full of energy and confidence. Without hesitation, he accepted the mission, not sparing a thought for the dangers ahead. "Whoa, wild men! This is gonna be awesome!" Ben exclaimed, eyes sparkling with excitement. "Don't interrupt, doofus." "Grandpa, keep going," Gwen scolded, giving him a light smack. Grandpa Max chuckled softly and continued. It was a freezing morning. Winter in Shenangjia blanketed the mountains in snow. The biting wind howled through the forest like a devil's whisper, echoing endlessly in one's ears. A young Max and his partner Phil arrived by helicopter, flying thousands of kilometers from the west. Their entrance was nothing short of dramatic. They parachuted down from high altitude, fully armed in blue combat suits, landing right in the middle of the forest. Waiting for them was Chen Suzi, a monk from Guangdong province who served as a forest ranger in Genryūsai. He was a frail-looking man, slightly stooped, barely over 5 feet tall, and so thin he looked as if a strong wind could blow him over. His white hair and deeply wrinkled face gave him the appearance of a frail elder. He walked hunched, each step slow and shaky, punctuated by a soft cough every now and then. Following behind, Max couldn't help worrying the old man might collapse into a ravine at any moment. He quickly stepped forward to help him up, but to his surprise, Chen Suzi brushed him off effortlessly with a light wave of the hand. Max was taken aback. He hadn't used much force, but for an old man to push him aside so easily was no simple feat. He held back his questions for the time being. They had a mission to complete, and the terrain was dangerous. Between wild beasts and the potential threat of the wild men, every step required caution. Chen Suzi first led Max and Phil to his campsite. After brewing them each a cup of tea, he began reporting everything he knew about the wild men. As skilled plumbers, foreign language training was a required skill. Though Max and Phil's Chinese was a little clumsy, it was enough to communicate without issue. It turned out that Chen Suzi had been the first to spot the wild men. But instead of acting recklessly, he immediately reported it to headquarters and requested the plumber's assistance. "Old man, I have a question," Phil said suddenly, his gaze landing on a hunting rifle leaning in the corner. "Go ahead," Chen Suzi replied calmly. His face was unreadable as he refilled their cups of tea. Phil stepped forward, picked up the rifle, and examined it closely. A weapon of this caliber would be more than enough to deal with ordinary animals. You could easily bring down a lion with it. And according to the report, you had this rifle when you first encountered the wild man. Phil's tone was cold, his eyes narrowing as he studied the monk carefully. "That's right. But what of it?" Chen Suzi said lightly. "Then why didn't you shoot? If you'd like to support my work and unlock advanced chapters, you can follow me on Patreon. Up to 50 chapters ahead for now. Patreon.com/pinksnake. Chapter 149, Chapter 149, The Yeti Alien. Sensing something was off, Grandpa Max stood up, joining Phil as they faced Chen Suzi. "Old man, I hope you can answer Phil's question." His tone remained polite, but his hand had already moved toward his waist. "Ah, you young people." Chen Suzi set his teacup down and shook his head with a wry smile. "Well, it's good to be cautious, at least you won't be led around by the nose. But this time, your suspicion is misplaced." "What do you mean?" Phil frowned, finger tightening near the trigger. Chen Suzi's eyes gleamed as he pointed at the rifle in Phil's hands. "A weapon of that poor quality wouldn't even scratch the Yeti." "How do you know that?" Phil shot back, clearly unconvinced. "Call it intuition," Chen Suzi said with a quiet laugh. "Besides, I'm just an old man. Fighting's for young folks like you. My old bones can't take that kind of punishment anymore." "The elder has a point," Grandpa Max said, gesturing for Phil to lower his weapon. "We've been disrespectful. Please don't take offense, sir." "Mark." Phil gritted his teeth but finally lowered the gun. "Remember this, young man," Chen Suzi said lightly. "Not every creature fears a gun." Phil snorted coldly but said nothing more. Chen Suzi continued his report about the Yetis. It turned out that after the local plumbers arrived in Genryūsai, they had charged straight into the forest without hesitation. "Those plumbers looked even younger than the two of you, probably just rookies," Chen Suzi sighed. "They disappeared the same night they went in. That's when headquarters realized something was wrong and sent two of their best plumbers, you two, to investigate." After hearing that, Grandpa Max frowned deeply. Phil, on the other hand, gave a confident smirk. "Relax, Max. We're not like those rookies. It's just a few Yetis, I could handle them on my own." "That may be true, but..." Grandpa Max trailed off, not wanting to dampen Phil's confidence. The previous team might have been new, but they were still elite among humans, qualified plumbers who had handled alien threats before. Their gear alone should have been more than enough to deal with ordinary extraterrestrials. So why couldn't they even handle a few Yetis? Max's instincts told him something was wrong. His gut warned him not to act rashly. Phil, we can't underestimate this. A Yeti that could wipe out an entire plumber squad isn't ordinary. We'll stay here tonight and move out in the morning to search for both the Yetis and the missing team, he suggested. Stay if you want. Phil snapped, slinging his custom laser rifle over his shoulder and heading for the door. An elite plumber afraid of a few hairy beasts? If word gets out, I'll never live it down at the academy. Phil, wait! Grandpa Max called after him. But Phil wasn't listening anymore. He was determined to hunt down the Yetis, rescue the missing plumbers, and prove to everyone back at the academy that he was the best of the best. That day, the snow began to fall heavily, blanketing the mountains and cutting visibility to almost nothing. Phil trudged forward through the storm, the wind howling and snow whipping against his face as he pressed deeper into the forest. Behind him, Grandpa Max and Chen Suzy followed closely. Though Max didn't agree with Phil's recklessness, he couldn't let him go alone. If the Yetis were as dangerous as they feared, Phil wouldn't stand a chance on his own. Snow whirled wildly around them, and a thick haze settled over the forest. Before long, the three of them had ventured deep into the snowy wilderness where they stumbled upon the bodies of the previous plumber team. The corpses were gruesome beyond belief, faces torn apart, limbs missing, bodies mauled by some feral beast. Blood had frozen into dark red crystals, scattered across the snow like strands of crimson silk. As Grandpa Max was struck by the horror of the scene, a sharp whistling sound cut through the air above. Before he could look up, an immense force slammed into him, hurling him across the clearing. He crashed into a massive tree, the impact so violent it felt as if every bone in his body had cracked. Agonizing pain shot through him. Roar! A towering black Yeti emerged before him, nearly 2.5 meters tall. Its tangled mane hung wild over blood-red eyes, and its body rippled with thick, bulging muscle. Beating its chest like a drum, it let out an earth-shaking bellow that echoed through the forest. It had used the corpses to distract them, then leapt from a tree in ambush too swift for anyone to react. Phil snapped out of his daze, raising his custom rifle to fire. But the Yeti moved first. In just 2 strides, it closed the distance, seized the weapon, and wrenched it from his hands with terrifying strength. Crack! The silver rifle snapped in half, splintering into useless chunks of metal under the creature's brute force. Phil's eyes widened in panic. He spun to run, but the Yeti was faster. With a few heavy blows, it sent him sprawling to the ground. He collapsed, unconscious, onto the frozen snow. This isn't a Yeti, it's an alien. Grandpa Max gritted his teeth, glaring up at the beast. He recognized it from the plumber archives, a violent, bloodthirsty species with overwhelming strength. They attacked anything that crossed their path, regardless of how powerful the opponent was. According to the records, these savage aliens shared a planet with the Tetramand. But while the average Tetramand stood over 3 meters tall, this species barely reached 2. Their tribes often clashed, and the savages were always brutally defeated. Still, their kind was naturally feral and aggressive. Even knowing they couldn't win, they would start fights with the Tetramand only to be beaten mercilessly, suffering devastating losses each time. Because of that, few of them remained in the galaxy. Finding one on Earth was unthinkable. Grandpa Max realized this one must have arrived by stowing away on a ship. After knocking Phil unconscious, the beast turned toward Grandpa Max. Seeing him still alive, it roared again and charged. Grandpa Max strained with everything he had to grab the rifle lying on the ground, but his body wouldn't respond. The cold had numbed him completely, locking his muscles in place. Just as the alien's shadow loomed over him, a hunched figure suddenly stepped between them.